The wind does blow a lot, doesn't it? Right there. Yeah.
We just verified it turned on over here. Oh yeah, no, this is.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, Miguel, you're got a hot mic there.
Hold on one moment.
Oh no. Let's see.
All right, I've got myself squared away.
Very
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Iron County Commission meeting this morning. Today is the 11th of March, 2024. Happy to have you everybody here this morning. Let's start out with, John, will you lead us in prayer, and Marilyn, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
It was deficient.
Okay. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered this spring morning. We're grateful for the snow that thou hast caused to fall on our mountains. We pray that thou wilt fill our reservoirs and our water tables and our mountains. We are grateful to live in this land where we can practice self-determination. We're grateful for the form of government that we have, and we pray that thou will bless the proceedings today, that they may be guided by thy hand. We pray that thou will help us to speak with clarity and civility. We pray that everyone might be able to express their ideas effectively and with kindness. We pray that thou will bless our land and our little county. We are grateful to live here, and we are grateful for thy providence. We pray that it might continue, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 In the Pledge of Allegiance, I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Excuse me. First of all, we have minutes from our February 26, 2024 meeting. Is there any question or comment?
I had just
I had a
a
little
little
bit.
change.
See mine?
Yeah, I got your
Get those-
emails and I
Yours.
corrected those. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. I'll move to approve the minutes from 2/26/2024.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then approved for claims for payment from February 22nd, 2024 to March 10th, 2024.
I'll move to approve the claims from February 26, 2024 to March 10th, 24.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to departmental reports. Let's start out, never mind. Auditor. Start out with Luke Little. I try and make Luke the assessor half the time, and I try and make you the auditor. You kind of interchangeable in my mind. But, no, not interested in you today, Karsten. I'm interested in Luke, for what that's worth.
Okay, so good morning. Starting out, we had a few changes in our office recently. We lost one of our full-time employees. We have now hired Michaela, who was our part-time employee. So she's filling this full-time position now. She already knows most of the job. She does the accounts payable side of the job already. And then she works great with all of the departments throughout the county and the vendors that we use as well. So now we're going to be training her on the property tax process. And then she will also be over the exemptions and property tax abatements. And right now we have the posting to fill her former position, which is the part-time position. Last year we had, I think, 4 out of the 5 positions in our office were all new, including me. So we had a pretty big learning curve to get over, and so I feel like we're getting there. And with this one change, it'll be a lot better this year. The legislative session has come and gone, and there were many bills that I followed throughout the session. This year I was able to more fully understand the process that each bill goes through. This made it much more clear on knowing where a bill was at and the steps that it still had to be taken before it was passed. I want to thank the employees at UAC that helped with some training on this and for their work throughout the legislative process. We are working on closing out the financial records for the county's year end for 2023 calendar year. We still have a few payments and receipts processing from last year before we have everything ready for the county audit. And our county audit for the 2023 calendar year will start on May 13th this year. We will continue working on closing out last year's financials and getting everything in order over the next few months. And right now, the auditor's office is working on processing property tax exemption applications. These are for tax exempt organizations like religious or charitable organizations. We are also accepting property tax abatement applications for personal property taxes right now. There were a few bills that updated some of the thresholds and requirements for the low income abatements that we have later this year. So we'll be doing some training and getting everything updated for those new standards before we send out the property tax applications in a few months. And that's for the real property tax at that time. Any questions for me? That's about all I have.
No.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Carpenter.
Good morning. John, do you have that thumb drive there?
Yep. Be great if I could fit it into the USB port.
Doesn't fit.
Oh, I don't know. I'm just being.
Being temperamental.
Yeah.
saying it's in.
You always have to wait for the technology.
Sorry, I should have done this ahead of time.
You're fine. I didn't realize I could do it from here now.
Yeah,
I could have just done it from here.
perfect.
Okay, it's not seeing it. Should I catch up with you?
Yeah, we can go ahead and press on if you'd like.
Keep trying.
So, just starting from scratch from a new year, we've zeroed out the numbers and have started over. Our Metro SWAT team has served 4 call-outs to date, including using 4-man teams with the task force to make high-risk arrests relating to drug trafficking issues and whatnot. One of the things that we've been finding is that we're getting a whole lot more guns involved in the drug trafficking arrests that we're making. And so as a result, we're tending to use SWAT team members to help make those arrests to try to keep everybody safe while we're doing that. The drug task force has been extremely busy, and so have the deputies. If you look at that photograph right there, that was one of our deputies 3 nights ago that intercepted a pipeline on a DUI traffic stop. He ended up seizing 50.67 pounds of fentanyl, 231,540 pills, 123.5 pounds of methamphetamine, for a total street value of approximately $4,558,160. And that's just indicative of what is happening in our community today. If you look at the SIAC is the State Intelligence Assessment, and as you watch that, you'll see that Iron County and Sevier County lead the state in pipeline seizures. Both being one on I-15 and one on I-70. Between the Highway Patrol and the Sheriff's offices, we're getting pipelines on a very, very frequent basis. And that just is one more indication of the federal government's failed policy on the border. With the open border, we're just seeing a huge increase in drug pipeline activity. We've talked about some of the things in the past about the cartels actually having fentanyl pill presses on the U.S. side of the border now. We've talked about precursors coming in to Mexico from China to help facilitate the massive amounts of drugs that are coming across the border. That we're seeing new types of both fentanyl and methamphetamine. Human trafficking and child trafficking is way up. We're seeing a lot of issues with that. It's just one thing after another. The federal government's policy is completely failed as far as the border. And I just got back from the Western State Sheriff's Conference, and one of the things that they talked about when we were talking about border issues is that now it's almost as bad on our northern border as it is on our southern border. That we're seeing huge numbers of people coming through Canada. A lot of them are from different nation states than what we've been seeing on the southern border, but India, we're seeing a lot of Indians coming in through the northern border now, and other nationalities coming through the northern border. But our borders are overrun, and it's just a completely failed policy. If you look over at the next slide.
Did you use the dogs for that?
Not on this one.
Not on this
This
one.
one was a DUI stop, and
Oh,
And
He was
during
able
the DUI
to
stop,
find those without
Yeah,
the dog.
yeah, we came across it. But, you know, a lot of the other pipelines that we're getting, the canines have been used on a lot of those other pipelines, you know, and we've got a lot of good hits. So, very, very important for us. We're actually off to a pretty good year this start. You know, last year at this time we had quite a few aggravated assaults and assaults with weapons and homicides and other things. So far, we've got 0 aggravated assaults, 0 assaults with weapons, 0 assaults on law enforcement. We've got 6 simple assaults, 2 air supports, 54 agency assists so far. Just one thing on the agency assists that we're seeing is that, you know, with the continual growth of Iron County and of, you know, the different communities within Iron County, one of the things that affects all of us is the growth of our law enforcement agencies to keep pace with it. And one of the things that this is being manifested in is if for example, Enoch or Cedar City or Parowan can't keep up with the number of officers that they need to hire in order to be able to staff their agencies, then my deputies end up holding down calls for them while they're out on other incidents. And you know, and that, you know, takes us away from being able to do proactive law enforcement out within our primary jurisdiction as well. So it's important for all of us to be able to try to keep up with the growth, and that's a difficult thing, you know, with the number of new housing projects that have come in. You know, as I've watched what you as the commission have been up against in changing, you know, what has been traditionally agricultural fields into new housing areas and whatnot. Just looking at the number of new housing areas that have already been developed. Just as the sheriff's office, we're getting behind in the number of deputies that we need to be able to serve our community and to be able to remain a proactive agency. So that's something that we're really going to have to look at, but so are the other agencies as well. The other communities are going to really have to look at their numbers as well and try to keep up with the growth. And so otherwise, we become reactive, and that's something we don't want. Here about 15 years ago, West Valley City was such a reactive agency that when an officer checked on duty, he was 45 calls down when he checked on duty. There was no way that he was ever going to get caught up. He was just constantly, it was a constant triage. What's the worst call that I have to address next? And so a lot of those calls for service never were addressed. And it took West Valley a lot of effort to be able to hire enough officers to get caught up on that. It's a whole lot easier staying caught up and remaining proactive than getting behind the curve and getting to the point where we can't ever get caught up. So just something to keep in mind as we move closer to the next fiscal year and start looking at what we're going to have to do for the sheriff's office as far as numbers. Burglaries 1 so far, child abuse and neglect cases 5, felony offenses 17, fires 2, K-9 41, mental health unit 1, misdemeanor offenses 157, other offenses 267, public relations 3, search and rescue 5, sex crimes against children 1, other sex crimes 4, welfare checks 10, drug cases 48, DUIs 13, animal problems 45, for a total of 1,134 reports so far this year. So actually quite a bit slower than we started off last year, which is a breath of fresh air for us. We're happy to see that. A couple of things that we need to be familiar with for legislation is the legislation just closed here in Utah. One of the biggest things that's really going to affect the sheriff's office is the bill that passed that enhanced the requirements for school safety and has put a huge burden for that school safety on the sheriff's office specifically. You know, one of the things that we're going to be required to do is to hire a a liaison officer to work between the sheriff's office, the school district, and the state security manager, and to be able to provide all the background investigations, all the training that's required for guardians and anybody else that is going to be allowed to carry weapons within our schools. So that's going to be a pretty heavy lift, and it's going to require a full-time employee just to be able to keep up with that. One of the other things that we don't know yet, but we may be required to provide 2 full-time SROs for our 2 elementary schools that are in the county jurisdiction. I'm going to have to meet with the school district to talk about that and how they want to approach that. But with this new bill that's been passed, it requires either a school resource officer, a security officer, armed security officer, or a guardian to be in the school anytime that there are children in the school. And so that's going to be a huge requirement for us to be able to address. One of the other things that we're really looking at is a federal OSHA rule that is being pushed. Right now it's open for comment, and it's going to kill us on volunteer programs. Search and rescue and our volunteers financially we could be completely destroyed from being able to have it if this OSHA rule goes into effect. It will require an annual physical for every volunteer that the county has to pay for. It will require all of our volunteers to be put on workers' compensation. It will require substantially more training in OSHA-related issues. So,
The state didn't fund anything.
well, no, this is federal.
This
is a federal OSHA rule. So just like what BLM and the New York Stock Exchange try to do with some of these stupid rule changes that they've tried to put in place, that's what this is. It's a federal OSHA rule. We've been working with Representative Malloy to try to stop it. We've been talking with our legislators at the state level. And one of the things that we've talked about is if at the federal level OSHA puts this rule into effect, that maybe the state will exercise their right of saying we're not going to allow that federal overreach to come into the state of Utah and order Utah OSHA to ignore it and not do it. But this has a huge monetary price tag that will be attached to it if it goes through. So it's something that we have to keep a close eye on there.
But the state didn't give us any funding either
Oh, no.
for an extra person or
No.
anything.
Now,
That's what I was talking
the school, for the school stuff, there's a $100 million grant that's out there for the school districts. It's not available to us as the sheriff's offices. It is available to the school districts, and that's another thing that we have to talk about is, what does our school district get, and what is it going to cover, and will that help cover our position or not? We don't know yet.
Well, couldn't the school district help cover the cost of that?
Well, hopefully.
I mean,
But
that's
part of
logical, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, they're the ones getting the grant money from the state. So, hopefully they'll be able to help us with that, but we don't know yet. There's still a lot of unknowns about this new legislation, how it's going to directly affect us. Our current strength, we've got 2 in post currently, and we may be losing 1 deputy to St. George PD. His wife is a nurse working down at St. George, and so they're moving down to St. George, and we're trying to figure out whether he's going to end up going to St. George PD or whether he's going to park his vehicle down at another deputy's house in Canaraville and commute back and forth. So we're kind of waiting to see what his final decision is going to be. On kind of our other personnel issues. We finally have filled our last detective position from outside. We hired an officer from Cedar City Police Department. And I told Darren that I'd like to feel sorry for it, but he stole so many from me that I still owe him
That's
a few
exactly
more.
right.
So I don't feel too bad about it. Our canine that we hired from Lincoln County is working very well. We have another dog that we're considering placing in the jail, which would give us 2 dogs in the jail. It's a dog that actually we hired a deputy from California, and he had the dog. His agency let the dog come with him. We can't use it on the street because it's trained in both drugs and explosives, so we can't use it on the street, but we can use it for contraband. So we're looking at possibly putting that in the jail as a second jail dog. We're still looking into the explosive detection dogs. One of the things that we're considering right now is getting a single-purpose dog and just placing it as a second dog with one of our current canine handlers, where it wouldn't require as much training to keep it up to speed and whatnot. So we're considering that. And then I think I mentioned this before, but we've hired Megan as our other part-time secretary. Other than that, we're doing pretty good on our vehicles. Hopefully be able to keep up on that. And we're now just kind of waiting for the word is where do we go now on the jail. And that's all I've got. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for all the efforts. It's Ken and I talk a lot and work together a lot. There's efforts from the sheriff's department, and the deputies it's really cool to work with those guys. I really appreciate the deputies.
We've been very fortunate. We've got great deputies and a great community. So we're blessed
They are.
the way around. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Shaver, come on down.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, so our overall budget status is 17%. An unexpected expense that we ran into was a tractor. We were plowing snow and it just took a kaput on us. Is that a word? We've maintained it for so long. I mean, it was time for a new tractor. We were able to find a really good deal, and we were able to buy local. We were able to buy out of Burl and on a stellar deal. And so, Mike, he always is going to get us the best deal. So he was able to, I don't know, him and the sheriff have been talking tractors for, months. So
The wheeler dealer.
yeah, he is a wheeler dealer, and so he was able to do that. So that's good. It's something that can move with us. So that will be a good deal. Our culinary costs for the year have gone down significantly, which is awesome. It could be because Rosa bought so much in her food storage that we might see on the next commission report. Maybe it will take a climb, but right now we're doing really well that way. Our average population is low because this goes from November 14th till March 7th. And so typically our numbers go down around the holidays. I don't know if that's just the courts, being nice to the
You
inmates.
did
And
tell what that cost is per meal, right?
oh, yes, the cost per meal is 95 cents, which
So
is
they can't see that.
Oh,
So
I apologize. 95 cents per meal, which is really great. This time in November, we were about $1.20, so that's a significant decrease. Our current total right now is pushing that 180, so we're at 179. We are housing quite a few feds right now. When we started going down in numbers, we told the feds that, hey, we'll take on a few more since they were hurting at that time, and they've kind of just stuck with us. We've been telling them to please get them out so that we can take in. We have more room for our county inmates, but as that does bring in revenue for us, though, so that is a good thing. our work crew's been just working fence, working lots of fence out at Newcastle, and also the fencing on 7700 West. We are down. We have 6 vacancies right now. That includes 1 clerical and 5 deputies. We did hire. We hired 3. We have 3 in a pending spot, and then we have 2 deputies that are in our background right now. So we're in a good spot as far as that goes, even though 6 is kind of a scary number. I feel like we're right where we need to be as far as getting those onboarding those new deputies. Long-term leave, we have a lot of long-term leave, lots of babies, military, some other FMLA situations. Our planned projects and expenditures, Taser has decided that they are a monopoly, I guess, but their cartridges for the tasers that we have in the jail are going up almost double. So we're looking at some different options there, but so that is going to be an increase in that budget. We're looking at, so Wade's been looking for us a transport van, like one of the big ones. We need one that's all-wheel drive for the snow. But the kind of van that he's able to find for us is not going to fit the cage. So we typically move the cage from the one van to the next van. And so if we need to get a new cage for this new make of a transport van, that's going to be a budgetary thing. They usually run about $30,000. So that will be a big one. But we definitely need that van. Our vans are getting a lot of miles on them, and we definitely need an all-wheel drive one. There's been multiple transports that we head to Salt Lake, and we turn right around and come back just because of the snow. An exciting thing that's happened at the jail is that we did our launch for our Ignite program initiative. So some of you guys came to the launch, which is exciting. So what Ignite does is it's not really a program in itself. It's more of a initiative. So all of our programming fits under one umbrella, and we incentivize it so that it incentivizes the inmates to participate in programming. And so after so many hours, we can give them like some extra commissary. And it's amazing to see what's actually been happening in the last 6 weeks in the program is we have so many inmates that are attending programming where they hadn't before, just for these small things, but then in turn we're releasing them into the community with better skills than they had before. So it's been really exciting. Some of the extra classes that have come because of it is we have a financial literacy class that's taught by State Bank of Southern Utah, which is we have lots of people. Even my officers are like, hey, can I attend that class? So yeah, doing really good there. Edovo, which is an online course. There's like 5,000 classes that they can just take right on their tablet, and they can get certificates. And Edovo is really impressive. It's free. It's just a free. This guy decided that he wanted to give back to the community and did like a 501c3, and he just provides this amazing all these online courses to our inmates, which is cool. We've always had a male parenting class. Now we have a female one. We also have a guy coming in. He's teaching a proactive life skills, kind of like the 7 habits of highly effective people. So we've been seeing some really great things as far as programming goes. This back page, it does, I had our office manager post the jail revenue for the end of 2023. She says it's not all in there yet because it's still kind of filing in. But a couple of the exciting ones that are on there is that jail reimbursement line. That's always the check that we don't know how much it's going to be until we get it. So it was $545,000. And where that comes from is inmates that get sentenced to prison, but they do county time as part of their probation. We get money for them. So they kind of allocate that across the whole state and how many inmates you are holding in that probationary status. So that was
federal and state, or is it?
No, this is just county.
Just county.
So it'd be inmates that their charges were in the county, and then they got sentenced to prison, but instead of going to prison, they ordered them like 180 days of probation as part of their probation, 180 days in our jail. But we never know what that is because the state allocates that money and then they have to kind of divide it out through the counties. So, but it's always an exciting one because it's kind of like bonus money, right? You don't know it's coming and then all of a sudden it shows up. So that's exciting. The other one is the Social Security Administration. Our office manager, Renan Hewlett, a year ago, she decided to take on this experiment on the Social Security, and it actually has ended up bringing in about $18,000, which has been, I mean, any way that we can try to get money to help fund our expenses, we go for it. So I've been really excited about that one. Any questions for me? Good.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yolanda.
We, in fact, you talked about the reduction in food costs. We went and talked with Rosa the other day and ate some of her potato salad.
Yeah.
That little cup of potato salad was worth 95 cents all
Oh,
day
good.
long.
I'll let her know. She does a good job, and
I
she
would
always
say more than that, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. No,
always watches people's health. I mean, she really does do a phenomenal job. So
no, your whole staff's awesome.
yeah,
They're-
we're really lucky.
yeah. So we
Yep.
appreciate your all the help.
I appreciate you too.
Commission, Commissioner Cousins, you want to go first today?
Yep. Let's see. I don't have a lot. But let me see where I'm at here. Attended the Iron County ICOG meeting. That was good. That's the meeting where we meet with all the mayors and county commission. We had our legislators there to report on the legislative session and what they accomplished, and we always appreciate them and their efforts. I met with Mayor Green this week. They got some proposals back from two different engineering firms. They're looking at taking the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant from a type 2 to a type 1 so it can be used more effectively. Looking at some ways to store that water through the winter, pump it up to areas where we can use it better, maybe even up to the lake on the hill where we can more utilize that for watering some of the commercial facilities like the SUU, some of the high schools, different things. So there's some exciting things going on with water. Appreciate Mayor Green. He goes in every day and thinks about water for this valley, and appreciate his efforts there. Attended an interesting meeting, and Commissioner Blake was there as well. I saw him there, but and he could fill in too. But so years ago, the Veterans Administration bought 5 acres of land right above the Home Depot, kind of to the south and up on that hill. It's a beautiful site. They bought 5 acres to build a national veteran cemetery, and something that's very needed in southern Utah. And they're under construction right now. The contract was released. It's about I think it's $34 to $36 million project. It's quite expensive because when I first saw them buy that property, I thought, boy, that's not going to be very good for a cemetery because there's boulders the size of Volkswagens in there. But what they're doing, it was interesting how they explained that. They actually go in there and mine the rocks, crush them, and they pre-bury vaults in that cemetery, all the vaults they'll ever need. And they even on these vaults, they do some deeper vaults with a shell so that a veteran can be buried, and then their spouse can go in and do it two individuals in one involved. So it's interesting how they do that to utilize the space. It was also interesting. There was two gentlemen there from the VA. Tony, I can't think of his last name, and Tony and was there. He's the director of this region, and he was. There's another group called the Southern Utah Veterans Association, Chuck Waddell, and they're trying to build a really nice facility. They tried to get in with the Veterans Administration to maybe partner with them to combine their efforts with the cemetery, but they were a little bit late getting to them. But they've since purchased, or not purchased, but a developer in Enoch has donated 20 acres to build an exact replica of the Vietnam Wall that's in Washington, D.C. They're looking at building an amphitheater for about 300 people, and then also a large building for PTSD, people that suffer from PTSD symptoms, veterans, so they can get rehabilitation and different things. And it was a great report. It was interesting, some of the details, some of the questions that came up with this veterans cemetery. They, I guess, if there's a veteran buried in, for instance, the Cedar City Cemetery, for them to be moved to that cemetery, the family has to vote on it. It has to be unanimous between the spouse and all of the children. It has to be unanimous to move that veteran to that new cemetery. So, and then there's opportunities, of course, for once that veteran's relocated, for the family members, I believe children and spouses to be buried there by them as well. So, kind of an exciting project for our area. Really neat to see that happen and to take care of our veterans and some of those issues. And that's about all I have.
Talk about the wall. Did you mention the wall that
Vietnam Wall?
The Vietnam Wall.
Yes. Yeah, they bought rights to build an exact replica, and someday there'll be an interchange kind of on that end of Enoch, where on the master plan, so that'd be easy on and off, and it's visible right from the freeway. And they've got big plans. If they can raise a lot of money, I hope they can and get some of those things built. So.
Okay. Great news. We put in for a grant through Chris Stewart's office. Of course, he's not there. Congressman Malloy is there now. But we applied for $10 million for the Iron Springs Road. And finally, through Congress, we all know what a mess that's been back there. They've appropriated Iron County $7 million for the Iron Springs Road. Of course, all of us know that the inland port has come in there. The Commerce Cross Road with the BZI group is putting a big complex out there, and we're very excited. Mike's worked a lot on that, and we're really excited about that. It'll be jobs for our kids and grandkids to be able to stay here, and we're excited about that. We initially thought that we would be able to go to at least the with the road, redoing the road from 56 over to the landfill. We won't know until we get our bids back and our engineering costs and all of that to be able to know what to do on that. The road crew continues to work on 7700. We're planning on chip sealing that probably in June. This next week or two, that road will be closed. They're putting some drainage along in there, so that they'll be putting some huge culverts in there, so that because before, when we got the heavy runoffs, it would go right over the road and damage the road. So now that we're chip sealing, we need to have that drainage put in there. On the 27th of February, we've had an annual grazing meeting with the producers in the area and with the agencies, the BLM, Forest Service, DWR, DNR, and it used to be put on by the Department of Ag, and they decided not to do it. So our local Farm Bureau, American Land Council, and some of the other folks got that together and put that together, because it's great to sit down and talk about our issues. We talked about all of our successes, and then we talked about the issues that we have with the BLM and with the grazers, and so that was a great meeting. We got we were going to have it at the festival hall, but it wasn't open for some reason, so I called Mayor Green, and he graciously let us use the city chambers, Cedar City Chambers. So we was able to go in there and had a great meeting. We've had some issues with trying the landfill in Parowan, the North Iron County landfill. we've been having a hard time keeping it staffed. And as we all know, staffing ever since COVID's been a challenge. And so we tried to change the hours, and we go now. Our new hours are the first and third Wednesday. Will be Wednesday through Saturday, and then the second and fourth will be Tuesday through Friday, and it'll be 8 to 6. Before, it was an 8-hour work day, which made it challenging because the other guys over at the other landfill that would fill in, they work 10-hour shifts. And so to come over to work 8 hours, they would have to take 2 hours of either comp time or vacation time to finish out their shift. So that was challenging. A lot of the people have been really great with our new hours and that, but I've had some that were very unkind about it. We called Mayor Molly Halderman and talked to Dan Jessen, also their manager, to see what we could do. You know, we don't want to close it. We definitely don't want to close it. But what are our options? You know, when we're having these issues. So we've got somebody in there right now, and I hope that everybody will be understanding with the county to try to keep that open and go forward that way. You just have to plan a little bit. I mean, it'd be having to go every other Saturday is a that's just something that you're going to have to plan for. It's much better to do that than to have to go clear to Iron Springs, though. So, we had an issue again out to the shooting range. I talked to the BLM out to the county shooting range. They closed it again because the paintball is right next to it. And I thought that the BLM was going to take care of that, and obviously they haven't. So we're going to have to work with the BLM somehow to either have them move that or some issue. Did you know that they closed it this weekend?
I didn't.
So what happens is the ricochets go over into the paintball course, and because it's so close, it just isn't very conducive to have a regular range close to a paintball range. So anyway, that's another issue that
Where's
we're
the
gonna have
paintball
to-
range?
It's
Is it
right over the top of
over
the
the-
other one.
to the north.
I think it's to the west, isn't
I
it?
think it's kind of the
And so it ricochets over
Oh.
that way because somebody was shooting bowling balls. They told me, the sheriff told me, the deputy told me that. So anyway,
it's going to make a ricochet.
yeah. And Maria had brought it up before, because she's over that, and so I talked to them, and then I thought that they maybe had it handled. Well, now everybody's out shooting again because the weather's turned better. Then that's the issue. So we'll work through that problem with the BLM. Anyway, go ahead. That's all I had.
I've just got a couple of things I'm going to touch on really quick. Paul talked about the veterans kind of at length. I was actually able to meet with the Veterans not the Veterans Administration, the Southern Utah Vets. They were here at our last meeting, but I was able to put them in touch with Representative Malloy. We did that over breakfast. That you get a lot done when there's food involved and everybody's happy. She was really excited about their proposed projects, and said, I don't know if there's federal money out there, but she said, I will do everything I can to help with the funding or the permitting or whatever that is. Said, you've won me over to the project. So that was a really good meeting to make that introduction and start to build those relationships. I spent quite a bit of time this last little bit with FEMA. FEMA's kind of a dirty word, but we've actually we had an in-person meeting just on Friday with George Colson, our emergency manager, a couple of representatives from state emergency management, and our local FEMA representative. Looks like we're going to be able to get funds for a lot of the road repairs out in the Burl Valley from the flooding,
Oh, yeah.
from the culvert, to repair those roads, to replace some culverts, to upsize those culverts for future mitigation. And again, FEMA was very complimentary, especially to George. They said usually everybody's just trying to screw us. They're trying to milk
Get all the
every
money.
dime. He's like, no, we just want to be reimbursed, and all we're asking for is for help with our damages. We're not trying to get rich off FEMA. And so they said, look, with that attitude, we'll work with you all day long. And so
Where are we at on that, moving that road in Gold Springs up on the hillside? Is that still going?
We're waiting on BLM, the NEPA on BLM, and that may be a while out, and probably with some private property owners also
Okay.
to be able to get that. But that would be a big win because
huge.
every time it floods through there, it takes out the road because it goes right down the wash. So
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. So anyway, that was really encouraging. Both from the state and from FEMA, looks like we'll be able to be made whole on those flood damages. Sam's not here. Sam and George and I also have been working on an EMS agreement. The state, last year there was legislation that basically put EMS responsibilities in the lap of the county, not necessarily to provide those, but just to make sure that those things are provided. So we've been working on an operating agreement between us and Gold Cross Ambulance, and I think we've gotten that. It's a really simple agreement. Gold Cross is providing us a good service. There's no reason to upend that boat. That relationship's good, but we're just going to kind of codify that because of the legislation. And we've about got that in place. So I'm going to leave it at that. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's come back at about 5 after 10. I've got to go sign some papers and keep Carrie happy.
yep.
We'll come back at about 10:05. All right, welcome back. It's a little after 10, but we got some things accomplished during that break that needed to be done. We're going to switch up the agenda just a little bit. Is Jen here? Jen's here. We're going to move our personnel items up to the front just because Jennifer's got some some interviews this afternoon that
Oh, I appreciate the
I want
accommodation.
to make sure that she gets out of here quickly.
Thank you. In the Iron County Sheriff's Office Corrections side, Elliot Matheson was selected from the most recent competitive recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant full-time Corrections Deputy 1 position effective March 18th, 2024. Aaron Wadley has completed all skills and requirements to receive a promotion from a Deputy 2 to a Deputy 3 status effective March 31st, 2024. And then in the Auditor's Office, Michaela Bess was selected from the most recent recruiting and interview process to backfill the vacant Accountant 1 position. She will be promoted from a part-time account payable to a full-time Account 1 status beginning March 18th, 2024.
I would move to approve all of the personnel items, A and B.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, agenda item number 1, presentation from Miss Iron County. Welcome.
Good morning. It's unusual for you to see us twice in a year.
Yeah, but it's so nice.
We love it.
The Miss Iron County that was crowned back in August has opted not to go to Miss Utah and get married. So it is being moved on to Natalie. Natalie has stepped in the role fabulously. She's really doing a great job. So I am introducing to you our new Miss Iron County, Natalie Anderson.
Thank you. As Karen said, my name is Natalie Anderson, and I'm the new Miss Iron County. Just a little bit about me. I grew up in Georgia for 16 years, and then I moved here to Iron County just under 4 years ago. And then I graduated from Cedar High just last year, and now I am an ambassador and a news reporter for Southern Utah University, studying communications and doing emphasis in media and a minor in political science. And so that's a little bit about me. And a big thing about being Miss Iron County is community service. And my community service initiative is Protect and Prevent, meaning protecting and preventing child abuse within Iron County, which sadly it is a pretty big problem. So therefore, I've met with the Iron County Children's Justice Center. I've brought donations there, and I'm currently working on a fundraiser to help fundraise funds for their new building that's currently being built out in Enoch. And along with that, I've also had the opportunity to meet with the Policy Project, which really worked hard to get Senate Bill 205 passed just in the Utah legislature just probably about a month ago, which is allowing child abuse prevention education being implemented in schools in the state of Utah, which is incredible. So I'm so honored to have taken a part in that as well. And another one of my responsibilities is going to the Miss Utah pageant, which is in the summer. So I'm super honored and super excited to represent Iron County in evening gown and interview and talent and onstage question and just throughout that week. So I'm super excited to be here today. I'm super excited to be Miss Iron County, and thank you very much. And would it be okay if I got a picture with you guys?
Sure, but what is your talent?
My talent? So my talent's a little bit of a unique one. There's in the Miss America organization, there's something called a Her Story, which is kind of something kind of new. It's kind of a story or talking about your talent. And I participate in triathlons, running and swimming and biking. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell a little story about my triathlon training and things. So
It's hard to do that on stage.
Yeah.
Triathlon.
Throw a pool out and I'll
we
just
could set up a mini something. Go ahead.
My niece went to Miss America representing Linden or whatever county was it, Utah County, whatever, and my daughter was able to be her little miss or whatever they call them. It was fun. So I experienced that whole thing one year. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
No, I'm really congratulations.
Thank you.
You know, back when this whole process started, you and I talked at the dinner one night and have communicated a little bit. I'm thrilled for you. Such a great person to represent our county and represent us. I'm thrilled that you're our Miss Iron County.
Thank you so much.
I know.
Very
Me too.
cool.
Thank
Me
you.
too.
Thank you. It's been an honor. It's been really fun.
Yep.
Yeah, if you want to do the
Up here,
usual picture,
Yeah.
come on up.
How about if we put us in the middle?
That works. Let's do that.
You guys go to the outside.
Yeah, that looks better.
Set it on the letters. Maybe a little bit more.
Better.
Good job.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
No, so cool.
Good luck.
If you need help with anything, reach out.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
All right, we're going to move forward to agenda item number 2. So agenda item numbers 2, 3, and 4. I'm just making sure that I've got
Actually,
and 5. Okay. We're going to move on to agenda item number 2. We're going to. This is how this is going to work. For agenda items number 2, 3, 4, and 5, once we start the public hearing, well, first of all, we're going to break that into 3 public hearings. We're going to break that into 3 or 4. Read is 5. So 4. So we're
Each item have a separate public hearing.
Yes, each item is going to have a separate public hearing for items 2, 3, 4, and 5. The time allotment for these, once the public hearings start, the time allotment for public hearings is going to be 30 minutes. That's not 30 minutes each, that's 30 minutes combined.
It's for the first 3.
For the first 3.
One is a separate
Yes.
issue. And could have a-
So, John, if you'll keep track of that time.
Sure.
And we'll turn the time over to Reed to
He's
Get
got
us
a
started.
presentation.
Yeah, short presentation. I know most people are aware of the project and it doesn't need a lot more explanation, but I did just want to review for those that are not aware. The property is located in the very south border of Iron County along the Washington County line, Highway 144. You can see where the star is. There are 4 parcels existing currently. They are in a Tier 4 area, which means that currently under the current land use, they would be limited to 20 acres lots. That would be the smallest lot size that we allow in Iron County in a Tier 4 area. The zoning currently is A20, so that means 20 acre minimum lots. You see on the east side of the interstate, the red hatched line is a Tier 2 area. They could have 10 acre lots on the east side because of the septic tank density study that we just did. It used to be 5 acre lots, but because of the septic tank density study that we did, if they're not on a central sewer system, they're limited to 10 acres in that area now in the Tier 2 of Canaryville. Canaryville's Tier 2. And this is on the west side of the interstate. We had originally included that area, all of the private property on that side. Here's let's see, I thought I had a land use map here.
Reed, sorry to interrupt, but did our septic density survey include the Harmony Valley?
Yes.
It did?
Uh-huh.
The whole valley?
Yeah, well, no,
Just
not
Iron
south of
County.
the interstate.
Iron, just
Iron
Iron.
County.
Have
All
they
the
done-
private property north of the county line on the
Right.
east and west side of the interstate.
Has Washington County done a septic density survey?
They have been relying on an older one that has been in place for a longer time, which told them 5 acres is for their septic in that area.
So that's where it's at now? Is 5
Yes,
acres?
that's what I understand.
How old?
I can't.
You don't know. Sure.
I'm thinking it was Hanson something study, and some of the New Harmony folks may know. I'm thinking it was like 20 years or more, but I'm not positive of that. We just knew it had been a while since anything had been done in that area, and it was kind of more the New Harmony Valley than up through Canaryville, and that's why we included that in our study for the Utah Geological Survey. And we boiled all that down to 10 acres. Their recommendations were around 16 acres because of the large area that we had down on the west side of the interstate. And then when we pulled that out, all that acreage, which we said will stay at 20 acres because it's in the tier 4, then we went with 10 acre on the east side for the Canaryville area and on existing lots. So anything that would be split would be a minimum of 10 on the east side, but the west side was still 20. So that was the more recent information that we had, but that area was included, but nothing down through the rest of the valley there. So the zoning then wouldn't be eligible to be rezoned to anything less than 20 because it's in a tier 4. And a tier 2 wouldn't be extended to that area because it's outside of the service area for Canaryville. And the tier 2s work in having the communities grow, and it only extended that far south because at the time we created the tiers, Chickasha Cliffs was already there. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been near that big. And we've been working with Canaryville, and their annexation expansion area is nothing. They don't want to have any. So we're going to shrink that tier 2 back, that growth area, and rezone a lot of that property around Canaryville. And they want it to be zoned 10 acre. We don't have a 10 acre zoning, but would do R5. So that's another discussion. But there's not a lot of opportunity for growth from the municipality down there. They're limited in their water system, and they don't want to get onto a central sewer, so they just want to stay what they are. And as you're aware, the tiering system put in place in 1995 and then revised significantly in 2005 provides an opportunity when you have a situation where the municipality doesn't want to grow their tier and there's nothing there for infrastructure, there's no central sewer, that a tier 3 could be a future urbanizing area when in the criteria of the ordinance, we have a minimum of 320 acres, and they provide central water and central sewer and all of the facilities that we've talked about. Then there is an opportunity provided in our ordinance for someone to come up and develop a tier 3 project, and that's what we're talking about here. These are the other tier 3 projects that we have in the county. There are 4 of them currently in the blue, and then the yellow one is the area that we're talking about down in the bottom. The Summit and Newcastle were existing tier 3s, and then we have since authorized 2 other tier 3 projects, but they have not been built. Thank you very much. So this is the language in our ordinance for what I wanted to just talk a little bit about is how these projects come to be. And the reason that we kind of combined in the public hearing and the discussion, the Planning Commission into a single hearing is because it's a project. We have a tier 3 change that goes with a spa zone that's required by a development agreement. You can't do one of those without the other. We can't do a tier 3 without a development agreement and being zoned to the spa zone, the specially planned area. We can't do a specially planned area zone without it being a tier 3. And we can't do either of those without a development agreement. And so they are all tied together, and we've talked about them as a single project, but I know there was some concern about the planning commission's combining those public hearings, and so today we can have them separate and to talk about each of those three items, but it's really hard to talk about one of them without talking about the others, because when we talk about the tier change, the only reason that can be done is because a development agreement is ensuring that all of those things will be accomplished, that the requirements of central sewer is what's required in the development agreement, and that's why they're kind of so closely tied to each other. But we've talked about the general master plan, and it's important to remind us that what we're talking about is a concept plan. This is not a development plan. It is not a subdivision. Those things will come later. This authorizes the developer to go out and secure, more water rights, to build the sewer treatment plant, to create the sewer special service district, to do the steps that are required. It's very similar to when we do a conditional use permit, for example, for a large solar utility. The conditional use permit specifies all of the things that they need to do in order to get a building permit. Well, the development agreement and the SPA zone change and the tier change all outline all of the things through the development agreement that need to happen in order for them to be able to split property and divide and sell lots and to do any kind of development at all. And so these are kind of the first step. They will have to come back. They have not, this is not an approval of subdivision, and they will have to then come back through the subdivision process with financial guarantees, bonding to ensure that those infrastructure pieces can be put in each time. We're not requiring that now because we're not at the subdivision level. So those things will come specific to when the actual subdivision occurs. So this is kind of an overview. This is the general layout. This is the concept plan. This shows how the lots would conceptually be divided up, where the location is, where the densities are, where the commercial area is, where the recreational amenities are. So this is what we would then come back to when they submit an application for a subdivision, and we'll say, does it comply with this? Are we generally in the same language here? They may have moved the boundary just a little bit or realigned the road because when they get out and do specific engineering on the site, it may be more advantageous to move the road 30 feet this way and reconfigure a couple of things. So that's what we're talking about at the concept level and the general land use plan that lays out the types of uses. Again, talking about the SPA zone is an overlay zone that allows for specific uses that are identified in the development agreement. And so they've created 9 zoning districts that are different than the zoning districts that the county has, but they allow for the uses that they are articulating in the development agreement for low density, medium density, and then each of those are accompanied by, these are just some of the other concept ideas that we will refer back to as we go through the development process. So here's an example of it that is in the development agreement as Exhibit C that identifies each of the zones along the top and each of the uses down the left-hand side, and then whether it's allowed in that zone with a permitted use as a conditional use or as an administrative land use, or if it's prohibited in that zone. So they've taken all of our uses from our table of uses and incorporated those into their zoning specific. And then we also have the table that identifies all of the definitions, and that's what's on the right-hand side there for each of those uses. So it'll be somewhat easier for the county to oversee and do zoning enforcement in this area because they've used took all of our tables and uses and then modified them to their zoning. And then and then this is a table of site development standards, for example, that tells what the minimum lot size in each of these zones, what the setbacks are, all the things that we would follow when somebody submits a building permit. So this is an overview of the, a summary of the proposal, changing from a tier 4 to tier 3 with the spa zone overlay and the development agreement. Sewer treatment facilities with a special treatment plant that will be a centralized sewer system, so there won't be any septics or any water being recharged into the groundwater. The water will be provided by the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District under agreement with them. They have the very specific criteria about, what size line it needs to be, what size tank it needs to be, how much storage they have to have, all the water rights, everything that's associated with the Water Conservancy District's ability to provide them water. They'll have to meet all of their criteria. We're talking about less than 600 dwelling units. Their proposal was 547, I think, and so we just said there's some flexibility in there depending on what configurations they have with a mixed use, and that's kind of the summary of the development proposal. We have been receiving comments on this project for some time, and we have tried to identify what those concerns are. It's always a challenge when we have projects that are being proposed and the people are concerned about the impacts and how they would be affected by those. And we try to mitigate those as much as what we believe is reasonable according to the ordinances. It's always a challenge, when I think it's very common, and we deal with this in our lives every day. When I know I've tried to convince my spouse of things and said, if you just see it the way I see it, you would agree with me. And I know that it doesn't always work that way, and sometimes we don't feel heard when people don't agree with us. And I want to honestly say I think we have heard very earnestly the concerns. We're aware of what those are. We've tried to identify them here and tried to, and the developers can attest as we had our discussions and talked through the processes and how we try to address those concerns. There are certain things we can address and certain things, that are allowed in the ordinance and are just not going to be in agreement with the neighbors and the people who feel like that they're going to be impacted because it's not what they expected to see in that particular area. But because we've provided for that in our ordinances and we've tried to accommodate the ability for people to utilize their properties according to the ordinance, we don't believe that people should just be able to do anything they want on their property. But we want to provide opportunities according to what the ordinances provide for, that we have vetted through the process and created ordinances that we believe are fair, and provide for a process of review and to mitigate impacts and to still mitigate as we go through the development process through subdivisions and trying to identify the things that we can really control and we believe that are fair for both sides. And that's really what we've tried to do with the concerns and the impacts that we've heard. I don't know if you want to spend a lot of time on looking at traffic, but we have evaluated because we've heard, the county hasn't done its due diligence. We haven't addressed the impacts like we really should. We know that there's going to be a traffic impact. Well, you should require a traffic impact study. We did some traffic counts. We're aware what the traffic numbers are on that road, and then we've evaluated that to see whether a traffic study is required. UDOT did want to see a traffic study on the interchange because they believe that there could be some impact there, and it's easier for them to approach those things with that. And so we are requiring that in the development agreement, and the developer has already agreed to do that, and I think has already got somebody hired to do that traffic impact study that would evaluate the impacts on the interchange. Rich can go into greater detail and explain the impact numbers here if you want to. Maybe we can take time to do that by request. I don't know if you want to take the time to do that right now. We also looked at roads on the emergency access. And so really the first hearing is on the tier change. And this is the criteria in the ordinance in the tier 3 area. that we evaluate project evaluation criteria. This falls in with the 320 acres and less than 1,000 housing units as a village. And you can see items A through F, and kind of cut off on the top, and then in the resort or the village development, the criteria that we evaluate and look at and is required in the application. And that we've reviewed that criteria on a feasibility level. Again, not at the level of development, but at feasibility to see if it's possible to provide those services, and then we have enough evidence of that, then we can go forward with that. That's really what the tier change is about. It's to allow for a spa zone change and to allow for a development agreement that would create this kind of village urbanizing area that would provide a higher density than what the land would allow for otherwise, because they're providing central water and sewer and other services. So if that's enough of an introduction, I will answer any questions that you want, or more information, or you want to discuss any of those things further, or you can go to the public hearing.
I'd like to ask about the sewer. These sewer systems that they'll have in place, they're done all over the country, I assume, and you know,
yes, this will be supervised and permitted by the Utah Department of Environmental Quality, Water Quality Division. They have permitted similar systems in different parts of the state. I've toured such facilities up in the Camas, Oakley area. They have a couple facilities up there. There are others in the state in Sanpete County. There are different ones that DEQ is familiar with them. They know what they are required to do. And there are different companies that do them, different technologies that are being used. We're not saying specifically what technology it has to be. We're just simply saying that it has to be an approved system by DEQ, that they will permit and regulate and ensure that that's according to the regulation. Again, we're delighted that the Ash Creek Sewer District has offered to consider an extension of their service area and help manage that and help serve that area. That's a good option. Otherwise, the fourth item on the agenda related to this project is the creation of a special service district. That is the legal entity that has to be created in order to own and operate a sewer system, because the county doesn't have a sewer manager, a person certified to operate and own a sewer system. They're not in the sewer business, and so they'll have to create that in order for that to be accommodated. But yes,
well,
we don't expect any new technology here that hasn't already been tested.
And I
tried.
can't imagine that the residents there would put up with the smelly, because the prevailing winds would blow it right to them. So I'm sure that couldn't be a issue, right?
Yeah. The location of it is, of course, because it's downhill and everything will drain to that. But you're right, prevailing winds will take the odors from that right up through the development. So they're going to have to make sure it works, or they're not going to sell very many lots.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there some talk about, when you say Washington County want to cooperate in that regard,
Yeah, it's the Ash Creek.
as far as moving,
Ash Creek Special Service
possibly
District.
even moving that facility further south?
No,
there's like
more
75.
likely
There's 70,
amending their boundary to serve this area.
okay, there's 75 lots to the south of that. About, I counted them on the map last night. About 1 acre lots that all have septic tanks, and if they made, I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah, they may say, yeah, it's worth it to us to move it down, and we'll pay for the upsizing and fix that problem. Timing-wise, that's difficult for this project to be able to move forward, but that's something that they could entertain.
Yeah. Would you talk just a little bit before we get started about talking with Washington County, your interaction with?
Yeah, I met with the county planner there, Scott Messel, on a couple of occasions, had discussions about this project. We first started meeting about the overlay that they were considering for the Harmony Valley and how that could work with what's going on in Iron County and this particular project. And we talked about the corridor of the of the Highway 144 and what they wanted to see out of that with a trail system with a hike and bike trail on the south side of the highway and an equestrian trail on the north side of that road. And I've talked to the developers about that, and they've agreed to provide for that equestrian trail and to maintain that along the front of their property and try to cooperate with Washington County. And, you know, I think that there's still an opportunity there. I know that their attorney's office spoke at the Planning Commission meeting and is interested in considering a development agreement with the developers on how those improvements for the road would actually be done. Our language in our development agreement simply says that they will coordinate and work with Washington County for the improvement of the acceleration deceleration lane on the highway. And so we can't act and speak for Washington County, but when we got a copy of the proposal and application, I sent Scott a copy of that, so they could see what that was going to be. And you know, we've had early contact. It may not have been as ideal in giving them all, you know, review opportunity because it's not in the county, but we sought their concerns.
And UDOT also,
talked to them.
right?
Pardon?
And UDOT also, you've spoke
And
with.
UDOT as well. Rich has talked to UDOT several different times on different occasions, and yes, we
Okay,
haven't done this in a vacuum.
yep.
Anything else?
Okay.
Okay. Chair will declare, well, first of all, the agenda item, first one that we're going to address. It's a public hearing, discussion, and possible approval of a proposed general plan tier change, Tier 4 to Tier 3, for approximately 482.86 acres within the legal description as provided in the agenda. This property is located near 2900 East, Highway 144 in the New Harmony Valley. Chair will declare the public hearing open for the issue of the tier change only. That's the first thing that we're going to address, is the plan to change the tier from a Tier 4 to a Tier 3. And remind everyone that as far as public hearing time for the first three items on the agenda, a combined time is going to be 30 minutes for those three hearings.
So if you use it all up to begin with, then you won't have time later, so.
And I would like, we received quite a bit of correspondence over the weekend, and I don't want to, I'm not going to count this toward the time.
No, I was gonna, if we'll read that at the end, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have a bunch of correspondence that we'd like to put on the record. And our clerk, John Whitaker, will take that time to read those onto the record, and we'll do that at the end, and that doesn't count toward any public hearing time. So if you'll set the timer, John, we'll declare public hearing for item number 2 open. Come up, make sure you state your name, where you're from, and so we can get you on the minutes.
Good morning. I'm Diana Stiller. I'm back from New Harmony. We're very aware of the time constraints. We don't want to repeat anything that's unnecessary. I think what I have to say is new as far as being on the record here. Regarding the tier change, Mr. Erickson did a good job. He went through all those criteria you have to consider right before you do a change to the general plan. I have someone else who has a piece of information from the general plan 1995 about what is to be considered before any changes are done. We still believe we've done a tremendous amount of research and spent a lot of time and money. Some of the people are here. We believe that you can and should require a demonstration of feasibility, and from our research it differs quite a bit. The planning department knows that from what has been presented that demonstrates feasibility, but that's for you guys to decide. It's your decision. We often hear where did you come from and how long have you lived here? And that is irrelevant. I think what's much more important is why are we here? Why are we in New Harmony Valley? It's the people who were born and raised there, whose families have been there since the 1850s and have chosen to stay because they want to live in that rural, small community environment. It's people like me, who bought my property in 2007, that got squeezed out of our formerly rural, small areas in California and hoped to have that same lifestyle in New Harmony. We expected growth to creep up from St. George. It always does. We expected it to creep down from Cedar. It always does. And we knew that when we bought the property. What we did not expect was a bombshell thrown 20 miles away from Cedar City into the middle of a rural community. There is a community already there. We don't need an urbanizing zone, a pathway to establishing its own little city or municipality in the middle of our already existing community. I understand the other thing we often hear is property rights. Developer does have, whoever owns that property, which is this developer, does have property rights. So do I. His property rights and mine are limited by those of our neighbors, the people who surround us. They're also limited by county ordinance. None of our rights are unlimited. None of our rights anywhere, our constitutional rights or anything else, are unlimited. They're limited by each other, and then government puts rules in place to prevent fights. And that goes with what we're doing right now, our right to peacefully protest and petition the government for redress of grievances. That's what we've been trying to do. We are educated. We're active citizens. I've already told you the sob story about my grandpa's flannel shirt I wear because he believed in that passionately, and he was really good at it and active citizenship, and that's why we're here. I appreciate the process that you're doing today, that the agenda is going as we expected it to do. We're prepared to talk. We're prepared to talk briefly about some of this stuff and to be not emotional like I'm getting right now, but it's really important to us. There are some things I did not see on that list. They may be in what Mr. Whitaker is going to read. I don't know. One of them is a concern about the grave sites on that property. We made the developer aware of that last May, I think the first time we talked to him. It was on a list in February. It's not there now. The SHPO office is aware of them as well. We have a general idea. The whole property doesn't need to be surveyed, but we have a general idea where they are. And I was given permission from the families to bring that up in a public record. We're concerned about the traffic impact on 144. This is a dense amount of traffic, both residential and commercial down there. And for the potential of signals and everything else, we would like a traffic impact study on that. And we're not trying to close the door. If people want to move into that valley that want to either have their own critters, domestic critters, or be around that area, that's who should be living there. We're not trying to close the door on that. What we don't want is a gated community that doesn't allow animal keeping. That stuff is for St. George, for Las Vegas, for Southern California. It is not for here. And so we're not trying to close the door behind us. We just want something that fits in with the character of our valley. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Christy Frisbee. I live in New Harmony, and I'm in opposition of all the items today. After several meetings with the Planning Commission, I feel I don't need to explain to you how special New Harmony is. I'm sure you've been there and seen how different it is than the other places nearby. I also don't need to tell you how the other Tier 3 changes did not have a national park in their front yard, and how a sewage treatment plant in a septic-only community can be devastating because that's not going to make you stop urban growth. We know growth is important, but it must be done in a respectful way to the land and the Southern Utah heritage. My main concerns, are the egress and emergency exits that were presented to you today. That was in good weather. I'd like to show you, this is February 12th in a very mild winter. This is the entrance to our emergency exit. No problem. This is about 150 feet down the road. And about a third of the way, I had to turn around here, and I have a very capable 4x4 Bronco, and I was not going to risk going in that. And I was already sliding around in the ditches to get to there. The other issue for me, school buses. My kids each spend 2 hours a day, 2 hours for elementary and almost 2.5 hours for middle school. And we are so privileged to have buses. But with this influx of people, with 500 homes, when I call the bus depot asking, why are my kids going to Canaraville and dropping off kids, Black Ridge, even Cedar City, they say we don't have enough bus drivers. We don't have enough buses. Sorry. And I understand that, and I'm thankful for it, but it's going to be a lot worse and a lot more cost on you guys. Highway 144, the traffic study they presented to you today, they said we are about 3% capacity right now, which is very true. When you're driving down the road, there's not very many people coming and going. And with the development, it would bring it around 33%. That sounds fine if you're driving on a regular, nice road, but our road is very bumpy. There's no slope, water puddles and freezes. I hydroplane sometimes if I'm going over 50. It will require quicker snow plowing response times because as of right now, we're the lowest on the totem pole that I can tell when I'm driving around. We're always the last in the day to get plowed. And probably major road upgrades, at least to the development part. The other thing for me is the sewage treatment plant, which has devastating effects sometimes on surrounding ecological systems. That may include Kolob Canyons and Zion Parks. I sent you a link in my emails about the St. George residential catastrophe. They had the most awful smell for years, and I've just recently checked in to see if it was ever resolved, and no one's gotten back to me, so I don't know if it's just a sore subject. There are so many communities already established in southern Utah where this plan fits and is appropriate. This shouldn't be gated. This shouldn't be less than 5 acre minimum out of respect for New Harmony. And this shouldn't be in New Harmony. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Pat Wall. I've owned property in Iron County since 2000. I've been a full-time resident since 2006. I live in Chickasha Cliffs. Just to follow up on what the previous speaker said, I lived through the fire of July 27th, 2012. I lived off Canara Hills Road. 3 of my closest neighbors' houses were burned to the ground because fire could not get there. The aerial assets that were normally in Cedar City were up north fighting a fire. The fire started at 1 o'clock. The first aerial assets got to the fire at 4:30. By that time, 3 houses had burned down and no fire department could get there. Second thing is, the 2022 census, the zip code of New Harmony, zip code 84757, as of 2022, had a total population of 1,305 people. 53.8 square miles, 24.3 people per square mile, 675 total housing units in the entire zip code. The city of New Harmony, same census, 2022, 244 residents. This development would add a minimum of 1,800 residents to the zip code. That's approximately 7 times the population of the town of New Harmony, which would have to drive through this development every single day. It would be 1.5 times the population of the zip code of 84757. We would really like you to stick to the master plan of Iron County, which stipulates 5 acre minimum. Just because you can approve this development doesn't mean that you should. Thank you.
Where are we at on the clock, John?
19 minutes, 44, 43, 42.
19 minutes remaining.
Hi, good morning. So, water for this project is definitely
Name?
an issue. Oh, sorry. John Lee, a resident of Iron County. So as we know, Southern Utah, water is always an issue. Even though they say it may not be, we have to look at the data. So this project, the average Utah family is 3.5 people, which each home is going to use about 12,000 gallons of water a month. And so that's 10 times more than what we use on our 5 acre parcels. So now we're looking at a 10 times sewer load of discharge is got to be treated. the water district is going to have a 20-time load on its water service than it is currently. The district already had to abandon a well because of water quality issues and have another one drilled. And the current well feeds agricultural and the Cliffs homes. So the water wells that have been tested, and I'm in the business, that are north of the wells that are going to serve this project have dropped 51 feet in 13 years in water level. And as we know, water quality changes when water level changes. The water company said they're already going to have to drill new wells as this project grows, which is going to add to the water burden in the valley already. So there's a water company, Harmony Farms, that's just south or down river of this project, and they had a water level or a water wellhead zone protection study that was done in 2019, and this project is in the red zone of the water wellhead protection study. So anything that's discharged is going to affect the drinking water for the library, the gas station, everybody on 3430, and everything downstream off of exit 40. And they sent a letter to the property owner, Davies, about the study and to be careful on what he does to the ground because it's going to affect the drinking water of the wells affected downstream. So now we've got a water treatment plant, and I've done a lot of work in sewer treatment plants, and there isn't one of them that hasn't had a spill. And on a couple of them, it's actually ruined wells downstream of the spill. So, you know, when you have 600 units and you have that kind of discharge, the potential for spill is always there. It just can't be mitigated to the point where it's not going to happen. So this project doesn't fit 98% of Canaryville and the New Harmony Valley, and it should be reconsidered as 5 or 10 acre lots. Thank you.
Good morning, Robert Kurth Jr. I'm an attorney licensed in Utah, Nevada, and also represent my family who owns the property contiguous and adjacent to this parcel in Iron County. There's basically 2 properties to the west, ours and then Smoots owns the one right next to us, and then that's the end of Iron County right there. So I'd like to go over some specific points if I may. And I think one thing to start out with is we have some laws that were changed, this ordinance that was changed back in 2005. I mean, why do we have zoning in the first place? Years ago, when I was in law school I graduated in 1991, but a little before that, they started out with the HOAs and everything else. And why do we do that? Because we want to improve, we want to keep our property, we don't want the neighbor painting their house purple maybe, we want them to keep up their yard. This is rural. Why did we create this in the beginning? 20-acre parcels. Now, I listened to Reed, and respectfully, something that came up that he brought that I would like the commission to consider, and I appreciate you hearing me out today, is that he said something like, it sounded like a study, and I don't want to mince his words and mistake him, that maybe they would allow a 16-acre parcel. It's currently zoned for 20. So what do? Our zoning doesn't allow us to go from 20 to less than 20 unless we create this tier 3. That's what it seems like it is. Well, I would submit that the county could change it. The county could change the zoning there and could even change it to a 10-acre parcel, even though we said 16. That 10-acre parcels would be allowed, and they would allow a sewage system, and that the developer then could develop it, these 10-acre parcels of land, with the sewage, without the sewage system, right, with the septic system. I would suggest that the county commission, if they're going to do that and develop it, even consider that. I mean, when my family purchased this property over 30 years ago, they obviously purchased it for a reason. I mean, we know that they're going to be promoting the collabs, which you can't see when you're driving down the freeway, right, which we have a great view from our front porch there. But consider the zoning. Why was this done? Why was this tier 3 done? And then there's going to be a development agreement. My understanding is the attorneys just approved the development agreement at the last planning commission, which was just a few days ago. I think we should be involved, or I sure would like to see the development agreement. I know that when somebody represented from the Washington County Attorney's Office showed up and they said, hey, we have concerns about the water flowing, the drainage coming across the freeway, the road there, and they're in charge, along with the state, of what happens with that road. I would suggest that they would say, okay, we're going to put a turnoff or whatever it's called on each side, and that's going to satisfy it. I would suggest eventually there's probably going to be a light there. If there's going to be that many residents coming out of a gated community, I would also suggest that I heard the sheriff talk earlier, I was listening to it, I wasn't in here yet, but I was listening to it on the YouTube, and he was talking about funding. I've heard financing, talking about we have some officers we're trying to get in, how many more officers we're going to need, response time. Worries about this thing. Crime, is it going to be crime? Is there crime when people are paying a lot of money and coming to a lot of areas? If crime raises 10% in that community, if there's 500 homes, how many people are going to be living there? 10% is all. How many people work or have a business and 10% of their people even steal a pencil? That's something minor, but crime exists and crime is going to increase. And when you go through the provisions of Exhibit B and Exhibit C and you look at it specifically, Exhibit B talks about that the applicant in subsection 5 has demonstrated the feasibility of obtaining police, public safety, and fire services to the reasonable satisfaction of Iron County, and the development agreement contains a mechanism. So the development agreement has contained a mechanism to assure the provision and financing of such services. Okay? So does that mean they're just going to assess it in charge, or do they have to pay for it? I'm not sure. Are they going to assess the people that buy in? I don't know, but that's what it requires. Also in Exhibit B, it requires that it's going to provide to Iron County, its residents, benefits that significantly, not just significantly outweigh those that would otherwise be derived if development occurred under the current zone. These people that bought out there, like my parents, they knew that eventually somebody might sell, that Davies might sell the farmland, and that they might have 20-acre lots, but not a town. Basically, this is a town, right? It's going to have a fire station, probably should have a police substation. Quite frankly, listening to the sheriff's department earlier, right, for response times in that area, being able to respond even to Canaryville, New Harmony. And we just heard it's going to what? It's going to double, triple the entire population, of Canaryville and New Harmony? And I understand New Harmony's in Washington County, but it's just down the street. The proposed development, is it going to have a material adverse impact on other property in the vicinity of the development? And also, do they have a reasonable financial plan? Now, when we're talking about impact, we're talking about impact on wildlife. I can tell you that our property that runs adjacent to theirs goes through the middle of a field. You have the rest of the field, then you have kind of like an island, and there's a lot of wildlife, deer, that cross through there. Now, what's going to happen in Washington? What's going to affect it in the future? What's going to happen to the church-owned land that is fields right now? Who knows? That could affect it sometime too. I understand that. But that comes through there. I mean, I would propose that they would talk about open spaces, open areas, if it's approved, that open area be from where that New Harmony Library is, west, okay? That their development of homes should not start, they should not be west of that New Harmony Library, where that is. And if you go out and you study it, and we're not just talking about deer, I mean, we're talking about, it's gonna upheaval everything. I mean, even rodents, right? Where are they gonna go? Where's the rabbits going to go? The coyotes. On our property, I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go, but we have about approximately 130 acres there. Okay? It's going to affect the BLM access. How's the BLM access going to go? Right now you have hunting. Are we going to be able to hunt like on our property, on this property? Probably not. Not if there's a half-acre home, less than a half acre. And let me get to that. When we look at the zoning and we look at the Tier 3, what does it say is permitted land uses in Exhibit C? It does say R1/2. Well, if you look at their picture up there, and they're less than half-acre lots, even abutting the property to the west. That's inappropriate. That shouldn't be allowed. I would suggest that no lot should be allowed, at least abutting there, less than 10 acres. And if you were going to go less, 5 acres. But there's not even 5-acre lots in their proposal. And we know this is their proposal to get it approved, right? It says you can't have density less than a half acre. Well, it's less than a half acre what they have. They also have a hotel.
And it's remaining?
It says I have like 9 minutes. Is that right?
For the entire process.
Okay.
For the other two public hearings as well.
Okay. The financing, is it committed? We talk about financing, and they're going to talk about construction in phases in development, okay? I would suggest, how long are we going to have to hear the noise of construction? What are the hours that it's going to take place? Is it going to be Monday through Friday? I mean, right now, if you sit out there, it's so quiet. If somebody's just trying to bang a rock or get a rock out, you're going to hear it with their backhoe, okay? How noisy? The noise pollution, the air pollution. I mean, there's more, the aesthetics that are affected by this. How long is this construction going to go on? When you heard somebody at the planning talk about Chickasha Cliffs, said they sell 2 homes, I think, maybe they add 2 a year. How long is it going to sell this out? If it's approved and you allow it, I would suggest that the entire infrastructure should be done. If they have the money and they have it for the entire property, the entire water treatment system, not just like, oh, phase 1, we'll do phase 1, now we'll do phase 2, now we'll do phase 3. It should all be completed, because what if they run out of financing? We don't know what's going to happen. Projects have run out. I think there have been other projects that have stalled, and I can tell you there's been plenty in Nevada and other places too. So that's what I'm worried about. They say we have the money. They might have the money right now. Might say, oh, we have this money. It's a lot of money. But do they have the money to do all phases and complete the entire project right now? I seriously doubt it. And they should have to have that. They should have to show that. And even if they do, is it going to stay there or is it going to go away? What's going to happen with it? But looking, I would just suggest that you look through this, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. Is it going to adversely affect the public health, safety, and general welfare? I mean, that's talking about the crime, the police, and everything else, right? The busing, the schools, which have been brought up. Do they have a reasonable financial plan to construct and to maintain everything throughout the years? I don't know. How long is it going to take? You can look and say, okay, there's been growth and development through Washington County up that way, but it's taken 30 years to build those homes from Black Ridge up. 30 years. Is this project going to take 30 years? 15? What if it takes 7 years even? And I can tell you, you can look at some projects in Cedar, just to sell 50, 70 homes, I bet have taken 7 years. And then we know there's a huge development called Iron Horse. I don't know much about it, but how far is that? Where's that at? How long is that going to take to finish? Urban growth. This is for urban growth. Why are we starting at the bottom of the county? When we're talking about urban growth, we're moving away from the systems. We're moving away from the center of the city. So respectfully, if you do approve it, I mean, there's a lot of things that we're concerned about. The lighting, looking out, how does that affect the nighttime? How does that affect the stars? How does that affect everything out there? The fencing. I mean, we have horses, we have cows. There's a lot of things to consider here, and I would request that you do so. Thank you very much, respectfully, for your time.
Thank you.
7 minutes, 21 seconds.
Okay, because we haven't seen the developer agreement yet, and we want to save some time to respond that. We have to have some time to respond to that because we haven't seen it. So a little bit of grace on that. All Charlie's going to do is read the opening of your general plan, which I've already told you gives you the opportunity to say no to this, as does the tier 3 and swapping. So New Harmony inspectors, if you've got something to say, Cliff, we have to leave some time for that.
Maybe I can just finish it out.
Well, and this is so, and just a reminder. I mean, this is to speak to the tier 4 to tier 3.
And the development agreement, which we don't know what's in it yet.
Well, right. The development agreement's not that's not a completed document yet.
I know, but what we've got planned, for example, making sure the townhomes don't get to turn into short-term rentals, is we can't complain about it until we see it may already be addressed in the development agreement.
Right.
If it is, we don't need to say anything.
Well, and the development agreement's not a. I mean, that's still a fluid document. We're not to the development agreement yet. But also, the development agreement, although, I mean, it's a public document, it's not a public document until it's a public document. It's not, I mean, that's something that staff, the developers, legal and such, compile that plan. Once it's a plan, it's a public document. It's not necessarily open for public comment as far as that plan legally.
But we are supposed to be able to have a hearing once it's presented, right? Like I said, if all of our concerns are addressed in it, then we have nothing to say, but we don't know.
Right. Well, and I don't know that, I mean, it's still a fluid document. I don't know that your concerns are going to be addressed.
There's a lot more that has to happen with this development before we get through the whole thing. There's a lot more. So
I mean, this is super preliminary. We can't address all the long-term concerns because literally this is the very preliminary. This is the beginning of this process. There is much more to it. But just so, where's our time, John?
7 minutes, 21 seconds.
All right, and in that, so I'm just as a reminder, we still need to talk about. We haven't opened the public hearing yet, just on the zone change. And we haven't opened the public hearing yet on the development agreement.
spa zone
Spa zone.
and the village.
And so, anyway,
Go ahead, though.
go ahead, though.
I have a problem with the zoning. So
State your name,
I'm not
please.
supposed to
State
speak now?
Well, we're going to, okay, on the zoning, we're going to open, and this is super technical and stupid, but we're going to open a public hearing on the zoning next. So this is specifically
Okay, but
to
they'll
the
give us
tier.
more time then, right?
Well, you've got 7 minutes total.
Well, I'll just be real brief about this. And my name's
Amen.
Patty Truax from Canaryville. And I'll just cut out most of what I was going to say because it's already been said. You know how this is going to impact the residents that are already there and how it's going to affect us negatively. So I want to mention that in the 1990s, Harmony Mountain Ranches, which is on the west side of Canaryville, also wanted to change their zoning codes to a 5-acre versus what it was as a 20-acre. The county commissioners at that point did not allow that because they couldn't provide enough safety precautions to treat fire and law enforcement. So there is a reason why you shouldn't be approving this. And since the majority of these changes are going to affect all the property owners, the people that have voted to put you in your commissioner positions to act in their best in their best interests, count on you not to make these changes. You know it's going to impact them, so do the right thing, please.
Good morning, Charlie McKnight. I live in New Harmony. I'll be brief. I just wanted to go over what you already know, and that is some of the criteria and factors that you can consider in making amendments to the general plan, because these specifically speak to what has already been stated. I'll be brief. In considering a proposed amendment to the Iron County General Plan, the applicant shall identify, and County Staff Planning Commission and the County Commission may consider the following factors, among others. A, the effect of the proposed amendment on the character of the surrounding area. B, consistency with the general plan land use map and the goals and policies of the general plan. C, consistency and compatibility with the general plan uses of nearby and adjoining properties. D, the suitability of the properties for the uses requested and their suitability for the uses identified by the general plan. E, whether a change in the use proposed for the affected properties will unduly affect the uses or proposed uses for nearby and adjoining properties. And finally, F, the overall community benefit of the proposed amendment. And I'll just take 45 seconds more to say that appreciate what you guys are doing. We've all got tough jobs. You're very accomplished professionals. We've got a lot accomplished professionals here too. Prudence is very important in everything. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Prudence requires that we don't always do things just because we can. That is a factor. But prudence is also a part of it is we do what makes sense. And I would just respectfully suggest that what has been stated here, no smaller than 5-acre lots, really is the prudent way to proceed to maintain robust Iron County, bring in tax revenue, keep the character of New Harmony Valley, and I would respectfully suggest that a village plan does not make sense for this valley, and that 5-acre minimum would. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. in regards to agenda item number 2. We're going to move on to agenda item number 3. I think we'll just poke myself in the eye with
Whoops.
my glasses. Well,
You're not going to approve.
well, we'll just
Take a motion.
we'll just save it to the end because I think the comments are overlapping a little bit. So we'll save motions until the end if that's okay.
Yep.
Agenda item number 3, public hearing, discussion, and possible approval of a proposed zone change from agriculture 20 acres A20 to specially planned area, spa area, for approximately 482.86 acres within the legal description as provided in the agenda, located near 2900 East Highway 144, New Harmony, Utah. Turn the time back over to Mr. Erickson to talk about the specifics of this item.
As mentioned earlier, the spa zone is an overlay. It's a way in which other zoning categories or zoning districts can be created under the umbrella of diversity and flexibility. As identified in the Tier 3 and the spa zone criteria, this is the zoning district specially planned area information about the criteria, requirements for adopting a spa zone, goes through 1 through 14 of things that have to be considered, which we've taken into account, and then the other considerations for the development agreement and what it contained in that items that are listed there 1 through 4. So again, the overlay allows for the creation of new zones that may not be in the current zoning. So even though an R1/2 zone is allowed in the spa zone, it also allows for the creation of other zones or other densities and other categories besides what the county may specifically have in place right now, which the developer has opted to do and proposed in their zoning scheme, so that it allows for smaller lots. We have other zoning categories that are also a higher density in the county than what's currently proposed by this development. With even the R1/2 zone allows for up to 6 units per acre through a performance subdivision, but the R4K zone allows up to 10 units per acre. So we're not exceeding what other zoning categories would allow for, but the provision of the spa zone allows for them to create a zoning structure that provides for the type of development that they're proposing. And after staff review of those proposals with the table of uses and their definitions, we feel that it's very commensurate with the type of zoning that the county currently has and the zoning structure that we have that will be more easily enforced because we're using the same type of zoning scheme. That's in opposition to one of the ones that we had done before. We had a totally different zoning mechanism, a form-based zoning. This is done off the traditional Euclidean zoning. This is essentially what our system is, and it will be more easily enforced. So I feel like that it fits within the categories of what is being proposed and what the county can deal with.
Reed, while you're up here, could you address the comment about the access road through the west for an emergency access?
Through the north. It's to the north.
It's kind of northwest probably. I mean, it goes north first, but then it goes west towards Pinot.
No.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
Just
It
out
goes- let me go
next to
pull
the
that
freeway.
map.
Oh, I was misunderstood then. I thought you were talking about the road that goes to Pinot as a secondary.
This is the one we're talking about, coming out of the north end of the property and going along the base of the hill there up to the Canaryville.
Is that required to have a second access like that?
They have 2 accesses out off of the requirement for 2 accesses is met by coming 2 access off of 144, but because that's a single road,
Right.
we wanted to have an emergency access out to the north for in the event of an evacuation or some other catastrophe. It would not be a primary use road. It
But
would
is it,
only
and that is a county road?
Yes, it is a county road.
Okay. So would it be required to be maintained based on this subdivision?
Currently, the county does not maintain that. They have graded it. The county does maintain, it is on the county maintenance system, but it isn't, kept up to, regular passage. You saw some of the photographs that on the lower end of it. The upper end of it is in a lot better condition on the north end. But that's it's part of this road where it goes out to, runs from here, just on the north side of this cattle guard going north is what this road is right here. South of it is a little less usable. But it's again for an emergency access. And Rich took the photographs and can speak a little. Part of what we were dealing with when we talked to the fire department, and when that evacuation would need to occur, and the only times they've ever had to evacuate that area was because of fire in that area, which doesn't happen when there's snow on the ground, and those are they felt that this was a good response.
So what that is that's an RS 2477 road, because it's all on BLM, except for a small section on private property at the corner. And it's a typical dirt road for anywhere else in the county. It's no better, no worse. In fact, I would say it's as good as any other. And it would be used in an emergency. And I talked to Ryan Riddle, and they would only direct somebody that direction in an extreme emergency. Most people would use 144 to evacuate, and with the turn lane and deceleration lane.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I just envisioned, I thought they were talking about an evacuation for the whole valley going to the west, but that clears that. Thanks.
So that is a brief explanation of the zoning ordinance and the zoning classifications. So unless there are other questions, I think we'll go to the public hearing.
Okay.
5 minutes and 37 seconds.
5 minutes, 37 seconds. Chair declares the public hearing on agenda item number 3 open.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I have to address that.
Could you come up to the
Come up to the
microphone,
mic.
please?
Diana Stiller from New Harmony. I wasn't going to say anything, but I have to address that. This is one of those situations when the people who live there know better. That if there is a fire or any other zoning, that whole valley has to evacuate. You would essentially double the population that needs to get out. By your engineer's own words, we're going to try and use 144. That is not a passable road. People get stuck there when it's completely dry. People in trucks get stuck there when it's completely. I've seen it with my own eyes. My husband served on the volunteer fire department for 2 years. They have fought fires when there's snow on the ground. It is not an adequate or safe evacuation route at all. We need to make sure we save time for the
Briefly, Robert Kurth Jr., 2661 East New Harmony Highway. About this zoning. So what I'm concerned about is what I said before, and I just want to bring it up. We convert this to a Tier 3, and now we get up and we say, because now we're a Tier 3, even though a Tier 3 says we can't have these land uses or these sizes of parcels. Well, now that we're inside of them, we've already done it, we can now amend it because we're a Tier 3. So we're like taking a giant step, right? We're moving from the 20 acre all the way to this. And I would suggest when you read it, it says you can't go below half acre. And we have townhomes, hotel, vehemently against that, and against a half acre. We saw that the lots can be 10 acres. And also as far as that, I just drove that road on the other side yesterday on a Polaris General and on the back side that's in the BLM. And I drove it all the way up where you can go and you can cross the freeway to go to Canaryville. And I can tell you, they'd have to create some other road there that comes up the side because you can't just get from there and get down on in any vehicle. Now, there is a way the road does get better, but there's going to have to be some work that's going to be done.
Thank you.
John Lee, Iron County. Going to the spa zone for what will allow the sewer treatment plant, you're going to have a Tier 5 or a T5 treatment 5 operator. There's maybe 12 of those in the state. I don't think they're going to be really willing to leave St. George or Salt Lake to come down and run this small system for what they're making equally in another area. It's going to be a problem.
Patty Truax from Canaryville. I just want to say, if these developers buy property that's zoned 20 acres and they think that they can make more money by reducing that acreage just by asking for it, it means that all of our zoning ordinances are ineffective or meaningless. And I don't think it should just be allowed just because someone asks for it. Thank you.
All right, seeing no other comments on agenda item number 3, I'll close public hearing on agenda item number 3. I invite Mr. Erickson back up to talk about agenda item number 4.
The development agreement is a requirement of the Tier 3 and the SPA zone, and so we can't, it's a requirement that's how we use the requirements and ensure that the requirements in the Tier 3 and the SPA zone are committed by the developer and the county. A development agreement by ordinance, and this is just a copy of our ordinance that shows what the general requirements are and then the criteria for entering into a development agreement and what specifically it has to contain, which this development agreement does. It assures that the development agreement it assures that the project can go forward under the criteria of the development agreement, specifically what the county is committing to and what the developer is committing to, that they can't do a subdivision until they get the ability to treat sewer under a central sewer system, and that the water system is there. They have a central water system. That those are things that are above and beyond, significantly above and beyond, as was mentioned earlier, that these things are not significantly an enhancement over a traditional subdivision. Building a sewer treatment plant and putting a new water tank and fire flow out in that area, I would consider a significant improvement over putting 85-acre lots with septics and wells in that area. Those are the things that the development agreement assures, and that we're committing the contractor or the developer to through this contract. The development agreement is a contract between the county and the developer to assure that the ordinances are being complied with and that we're providing the things that are required in the ordinance. And so that's what the development agreement is for. I wouldn't say that it's in flux or ongoing, because we have gone back and forth between staff and comments from the Planning Commission and the developer and an attorney back and forth. Said it was not available all in its final version because we've been making changes back and forth, and I just got those final changes Friday afternoon from their attorney after changes that we had recommended and had been discussing back and forth. So it is in its final version today and is ready for adoption if the commission feels like that's appropriate. But it does contain the commitments that they will provide central sewer, central water, build the roads to the county standards, build all of the infrastructure according to the county design standards, which the developers had copies of, has reviewed, is aware the conditions under which this development has to be built. And so those are the commitments that are outlined in the development agreement. I did have just a short table here showing in the development agreement the master plan is committed in the development agreement, the table of uses, the definitions, the things that I showed earlier, the table of site development standards. I hadn't shown the phasing schedule. Let me take just a minute and show. Here's some language out of the development agreement on page 8 that just talks about the purpose. The parties desire that the county have reasonable certainty concerning the manner in which the New Harmony Ranch Village will be developed, and the developer will have reasonable certainty in proceeding with the development of the New Harmony Ranch Village. Somebody can't invest millions of dollars in a sewer treatment plant and assume that the county is going to maintain that zoning, and then doesn't come back 5 years from now and say, okay, now we're going to do 5 acre zoning, and then they don't have the ability to recoup the cost of that investment. This is an assurance for both parties that those things will be done and that those investments can be made and that they can be recouped. So these are just different sections out of the development agreement that I thought might be an explanation of how it works and what's in it, the commitment of the developer in how they will develop CC&Rs and homeowners association to take care of the costs of the ongoing commitment. The development and the developer assigns or will work with in coordination with Washington County to create an acceleration deceleration lanes on 144. And then also with UDOT providing a traffic impact study and work with UDOT in accomplishing those, addressing the concerns that are identified in the study. Those are the kinds of things that we have in the development agreement. Of course, it has the legal description, the general, all of the drawings that we've had here as concepts that we will ensure that the development is built to as subdivisions come through. The zoning structure, the definitions, the table of site development standards. This is the phasing schedule that's being proposed. There are provisions in the development agreement to amend the development agreement. There's been some concern about what one developer could do, and if they sold it, if another developer can come and change the whole thing. This development agreement provides that the developer can take a block and assign it to someone else, a contractor, to build homes in that area, as long as that's all done within the concept of the original master plan. There are two provisions, two types of amendments that can be made in the development agreement. There's administrative amendments and there's substantive amendments. A substantive amendment has to come back before the county commission for reconsideration that would really be anything that would change the number of lots, the the general configuration, the whole concept. If that were to change, that would have to come back before the county commission. Administrative changes are simply things like the road configuration, if we're moving it a little bit, anything that's administrative that can be handled by staff and that wouldn't change the intent of the agreement. So that's how they can be changed.
So, Reed, I have a question. So with the Cedar City wastewater treatment plant, the effluent is a type 2 effluent, and it can be put into pivots for agriculture, but there's limitations. So this effluent, will it be, maybe the applicant can talk about this, or you, what will that effluent discharge be? Will it, I've heard that it might go to this pond, the lake. Is it going to be treated to a type 1, which I think it would have to be? Is it going to go into a secondary water system to water
They do
lawns,
plan to use
outdoor
for landscaping and outdoor watering.
It'll have to be treated
so
to a
it'll
type
have
1.
to be treated to the ability to do that, again, regulated by DEQ. We haven't specified that. We haven't said it needs to be treated to a type 1 or type 2. It depends on what their use is, and according to like everybody, like Cedar City or anybody else that has a sewer treatment plant, depending on what they want to use that water or an effluent for and where they discharge it to the degree that would have
like
to be
Santaquin has they treat theirs to a type 1, and I've toured that plant, and they have to use UV lighting to treat the water to kill the bacteria and that, to use it in that situation. So the kids, so it's not a type 2 and some kids drinking out of a hose.
Whatever intent they plan to use the effluent. We're not specifying.
Is that a factor that they're thinking about, and to what? Because that's expensive to treat effluent to type 1.
I don't know if the developer wants to address that. I know his partner Mark is more the one on that, but if you want to address that, it may be appropriate.
Okay, thanks.
Hello, Brad Esposito with New Harmony Ranch. Thank you. All I can tell you about it is we have contracted a couple different engineering firms, and we're looking with companies. Easy Treat is one, Aquatech is another. And, we will, of course, adhere to the standards that need to be met to do that. It is our intention. We would like to be able to reutilize the water and put it back into the lake and for landscape and that type of thing. So
It just seems like you would have to, because what else would you do with that discharge, right?
Yeah, no, and we don't want to waste it.
Right.
So, yes, we are committed to do
Well,
that.
and you wouldn't want to waste it, but you also wouldn't want to add to the nitrates that are already in
Correct.
the valley by discharging it.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, right?
No, the DEQ is
Yeah, they're tough.
difficult to work with.
They're tough, and
You know
we're in
that.
talks right now with them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's a challenge. Yeah.
yes, and we will make sure to cooperate and do the right thing. Absolutely. Thank you.
I have talked to the Southwest Public Health District engineer, who is aware of this project and is aware that the contractors, the developers, have had contact with the state DEQ, which is actually where this will be permitted, because it's beyond the scope of what the local can do. But they've had contact with state DEQ on how they would make this work.
Yeah.
Any other questions about the development agreement? The phasing schedule, again, is just a concept of how they expect to move through the project, and it's really hard. Mr. Kurth's comment, and it's a difficult one to try to address, how long it takes to build out, and what the impacts over time as properties develop. So much of it is market driven, and any developer is going to have to phase a project of this scale. They can't.
Is the numbers, is that what the
So phase one would be this first area right here, which is housing.
So the motel would be one of the last ones.
Yeah, it would be one of the last things to come, because I think the village core and a lot of that, they're going to have some residents there in order to
make it
make
viable.
that viable.
Mm-hmm.
They can't really invest in that until they've got some base of customers that are there that would use those facilities. So that's the general expectation of development pattern. Any other specific questions about the development?
So can you go back to that map? Does the horse, where does the horse trail come?
Number 6 up in the upper right hand corner.
That's where that horse area is.
Yeah, the equestrian area is up in this area right here.
Yeah.
So based on the 2 county proposals, we went ahead and put equestrian trail in on the frontage. It goes all the way up to the stables. This will be public access all the way up. Stables are at the top, then it goes straight out to Beto.
So there is actual stables that will there be an arena or just?
We're planning on a small arena. It just depends on demand, but yeah.
Yeah.
So stables will be there, and people will be allowed to stable horses.
Yeah.
Okay. John, what's our time? What's our clock look like?
4 minutes and 6 seconds.
All right. Chair will declare the public hearing open on agenda item number 4. I don't believe I read that into the minutes. It's public hearing discussion and possible approval of a proposed development agreement for the New Harmony Ranch Village. Planned master village community with open space, recreation, a village center with single and multi-family residential, approximately 547 dwelling units within the legal description as listed in the agenda, located near 2900 East Highway 144, New Harmony, Utah.
Pat Wall, Chickasha Cliffs. I would like to know what the length of the development agreement is. Is it open-ended? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
The development agreement is the specific term is to be for the time that it takes to develop the project and have all of the requirements in the project fulfilled. So it may be, if they build it out, it could be a 10-year agreement. There's no time specific. There is provision for the county to terminate the agreement if they believe that the developer is not in compliance and is not committing to the promises that are made in the agreement. The county can proceed to close and terminate the agreement, but it doesn't have a time specific expiration because it's specific to when all of the commitments are made in the agreement, and then it will terminate and by agreement of both parties.
Thank you.
Again, Diana Stiller, New Harmony. I know we're about out of time. Two things. One is we have a lot of experts here, and we've done our own contact, including with state levels about water quality and everything else. You've seen that in your emails. I just want to remind you that no, we don't live in Iron County, except for the Kurth family, but we're your neighbors. Washington, Cedar City, Canaryville, and New Harmony are inextricably linked, and they have been for 170 years. Is that right in the math? And we ask you to respect that and appreciate. Our kids go to school here, we shop here, we spend our time here, we do our cultural time here, and we'd ask you to consider that when you're voting on this.
Good morning, Robert Kurth Jr., 2661 East New Harmony Highway. Concerning this agreement, my concern is I'd like to read it. Now, if you're going to approve something, because I would ask that you at least table this. Hopefully you don't approve any of it. But if you table this part, because we need to look at it. If this is a contract, and I'm not sure, right? It's a contract. It's an agreement between the developer and the county. So what changes can be made, what modifications can be made? Because if you're going to approve the plan that they have up there right now, proposed plan, that's putting these less than half acre lots, which are in violation of the Tier 3, okay, and adjacent to our property. Plus, when you look at that emergency area, they're going to have to move that, I can tell you right now, to the other side where they have the horses and the fence. They're not going to be able to put that right there. That doesn't come out on a good road to get out of there. It does not. You'll have to go to the far, what would that be, the northeast corner. You're going to have to go to the northeast corner, no doubt. So if you approve that and it locks that in, I have a concern with it very much. Thank you.
Why can't the road just be improved? Where's that?
It's on BLM. That's BLM land right there. So I think at one part, Iron County has it.
2477 road. I'm sure it could be maintained. And
Well, if it's a horse trail, you
That's-
can
I
go
mean,
on anything, right?
Basically right now.
I can
it's-
ride on anything.
Basically right now, it's an ATV
Yeah.
trail, a side-by-side trail. I mean, you can put a truck, and drive back, but I'm going to get through there and to keep going. It's one thing riding back and forth and coming out way out in Washington County, okay, and going that direction. It's another thing going out in Iron County. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Stop the clock for a minute.
It's been stopped.
I think the
Just
clock.
to answer that question, I just wanted to point out that the emergency exit, we're aware of this draw. This is the first thing that you hit when you come out of this, and this is over on the east side of the property right here, out up above where the equestrian area is. And so right now, if they come out on the very corner, they would be on the west side right here on this draw, but if they come just a little further over, they can come up the east side of that, and we can work with BLM on that too, so we can avoid that draw, or we culvert that draw, and we can work with the developer on that and making sure that we have a good access out on that for emergency.
Okay, Chair declares the public hearing closed.
Go to the.
Do we read? Do we need to? Is this a good time, I guess, for John to read into the record some of the
Yeah,
emails
probably so.
because the others?
Then you can go back to the agenda item 2 and take action on that, and then 3, and then
Yes.
4.
And while you're up, Reed, I have a question. Is it a legal requirement for us to disclose the development agreement? to the public?
It is a public document. We can get copies, but we've just been negotiating, and trying to make the changes before we could make it public, so that we knew we had one that we were not sending out drafts that with people want things that we already are working
If we
on.
don't approve that part, it won't hurt anything going forward, would it? We could do it in the next meeting.
Well, except that
You have to have that for the others.
development agreement is required to approve a Tier 3 and a SPA zone, so they're tied
They're
at
tied
the hip.
together.
And,
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you were to table it, you would almost have to table all 3 items. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because we can't really approve the development agreement or the SPA or the Tier 3 without a development agreement.
Which is, like you say, why they're so closely interrelated.
Okay, that makes
the,
sense.
the criteria for the Tier 3 and the SPA zone require a
have a
development agreement.
Agreement.
You
yeah.
talk about the development agreement in the planning commission quite a bit. I was out of town. I couldn't make it, but
Not any great detail, no. But just sent copies out to the planning commission for their review, and you've seen copies as well.
I've read it.
Yeah. It's
But
mostly
it's a contract to
it's a
ensure
contract.
that the county is comfortable that the developer we're committing the developer to the things that the ordinance requires. It's not a public negotiation to say, well, we want this in the development and we want that. It's to ensure that the ordinances are being complied with and that we are getting the commitments out of the developer that the ordinances require.
so it's not required legally. It's not that we're trying to hide anything. It's to enforce everything else within what we're doing.
Correct. The concepts are what we've talked a lot about, and we've just reviewed the development agreement to ensure that those things are being complied with that are required in the ordinance.
Okay.
And I'll just state that our office also reviewed the development agreement and didn't have any problems, concerns with it.
With that.
Okay. John, whenever you're
Yes, sir. Okay. Much of this will be repeat after the comments, but that's okay. I'm going to either read or give a synopsis. So Jody Macleay, I hope I'm getting her pronunciation correct. She focused on schools. She said if the village is allowed to proceed as a Tier 3, it will impact South Elementary, Cedar Middle School, and Cedar High as follows, and she gave some numbers. Her estimate that it would be a $2 million a year additional cost for the Iron County School District just for that village. Versus 547 students with the Tier 3 versus 48 to 96 with 5 or 10 acre parcels. She opposed it. Please do not put more burden on already overcrowded and underfunded school system. Also, there are 2 new communities already started south of Home Depot on both sides of I-15. They will have new students attending those same schools. Carol Cragen wrote, her concerns were that the developer said he would build and pay for the salaries of a new fire station. The property currently has no fire protection. The developer has planned a sewer treatment plant adjacent to Highway 144. Where will the runoff go? We don't want to see and smell sewage every time we leave home to go to Cedar City. The plant should be at least 1/2 mile to 1 mile north of Highway 144. The developer is proposing a quote-unquote gated community. While this might be common in Las Vegas, it does not fit within the aesthetic of Harmony Valley. Also, he says he quote-unquote might let the community use his hotel, restaurant, and store. Iron County prepared for the influx of students? There are not enough teachers and bus drivers now. How will you provide new schools, teachers, etc. for the additional students? 5, 10, and 20 acre lots would fit in with the surrounding area and keep the rural feeling. Laura Barnowski wrote, and hers was rather lengthy, so I'm going to try and summarize. She says, I'm opposed to this development for many reasons, but the most compelling reason is this proposition does not in any way conform to the nature of what is the New Harmony Valley. Wide open spaces, large presence of agriculture, farming, cattle, horse ranches. Homes along the valley west of this proposal are on a minimum of 5 acres, being actually at least 10 acre plots. In between are fields of cows and horses. Directly across the road are fields that feed cattle, horses, and sheep. And then she kind of went through some of the zoning. 17.02.030. The purpose of this is to implement the goals and policies of the Iron County General Plan. This title contains standards and requirements intended to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens of Iron County by, and then she bolded this, ensuring that neighbors and adjacent and neighboring properties are protected from potential negative impacts in the development and use of land and resources. She said, oh, wow. Okay, that's a lot of comments there. I realized what she was doing. The effects of the proposed amendment are the character of surrounding areas, and she says the surrounding area is not urban. Consistency and compatibility with the general plan of uses in nearby adjoining properties. There's only one adjacent property to this proposed development in Iron County, which is currently agriculture. Regarding the horse ranch adjacent to the west, no one has discussed the ramifications of this proposed development on his ranch. Whether a change in the use proposed for the affected properties will unduly affect the uses or proposed uses for nearby and adjoining properties. She says, my comments again, see the above. She argues that there is insufficient water to supply the development. And then there was a bit of discussion about a special service district, that only a registered voter within the special service district can challenge it. She says this means that no one can protest the creation of an SSD on vacant land. I do not believe the legislature intended to deny any resident opposition. Hence, this should not be used when vacant land is the subject. Talks about an administrative control board, and it has to be someone within the district. She says this means that no one can be on the administrative control board other than a county employee when using this statute. She says, I request that you review usage of this statute to allow a special service district on the proposed development. Per discussion I had with the Utah Associate for Special Service Districts, they recommended other methods to be explored, such as a public infrastructure district, something aimed at providing these services to vacant land. This one is from, I'm going to do some shortening here too because this is long. Tell you what, I'll get to the name. Craig Parmley. He says, in 37 years in this business, this is the first time I've seen such a serious proposal treated so lightly and with almost no due diligence. We have heard from water, sewer, and flooding experts who have expressed similar concerns. As of March 7th, we have been told, trust us, we'll make sure the proper steps are eventually taken, but let's approve this anyway. He says, I'm not in favor of this, but I want to, if the commissioners do approve it, I want to feel that all the concerns were professionally addressed. And in italics, he says, despite not wanting this development, I am pragmatic and reasonable enough to accept the results of a thorough feasibility study and an exhaustively outlined and prepared developer agreement. Sadly, we are far from that point, he says. On March 7th, Paul Monroe of the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District said that they only have water for 250 residences. The current plan calls for over twice that number. Where is the water coming from? What will be the effect on nearby wells and water districts? He said that they got differing answers on January 22nd, February 1st, and March 7th as far as who had jurisdiction over Highway 144. He says it's embarrassing and unprofessional and casts a huge shadow on staff judgment. More on the traffic study, he says, none of the Iron County representatives who made the recommendation held recognizable registrations or endorsements as traffic engineers, and none represented an agency with jurisdiction over the road. Despite this, on 3 occasions, a representative from Iron County stated that they had reviewed traffic data, most recently in the form of counts, and deemed no improvements were needed. He was concerned that there was no mitigation offered. He talked about confusion between Washington County and Iron County. He talked about data that he expected to be in a traffic study, such as accident history, accident types, road constructions, details, cross-sections, etc., where the road is in its maintenance life cycle, seasonal weather conditions, and impacting site distance, road layout. He talked about the coordination between Iron County and UDOT. He felt that there hadn't been much. He was concerned about flooding runoff and coordinating with Washington County, where much of the downstream is Washington County. He says a lawyer retained by New Harmony residents was told by Iron County staff one day before the March 7th meeting that they did not have a development agreement despite the Planning Commission to approve it the next day. He says, make your staff and developers do their due diligence. Make them properly outline impacts on other jurisdictions. Make them turn to the drawing board and provide enough information to assess the feasibility and development accurately. Once you have the information in hand, make them good partners with your neighbors in local government and come to a reasonable choice backed by accurate data. We only ask that you don't sacrifice our rights as residents and property owners in favor of the perceived rights of the developer. This one is from Diana Stiller. Are you okay if I just not read yours, Diana? Or do you want me to?
I think I've said the major points, that's fine.
Okay. And I hope I'm not repeating people who are in the room, but I know you. Let's see. One point that Diana made was that Ordinance 205 requires considering the effects on neighbors. That's it.
Okay. I'd like to give Mr. Esposito or anybody from your organization some time to fill in the gaps.
Thank you, Brad Esposito again. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I don't want to get into a bunch of rebuttal against what's been said because we've been working on that, but I wanted to make sure that it's understood things like the development agreement. And by the way, the planning department has been fantastic. All of your staff is to be commended. Great to work with. But this project started about discussions about 3 years ago. So this isn't something that we just dreamed up a month ago and we're shoving it down everybody's throat today. The development agreement has gone back and forth for months to get to the point that we're at, and I think everybody is in agreement. But the main thing I just wanted to emphasize is that a little bit about me. Everybody refers to us as big corporate developers that are coming in. I live in Pine Valley. I've been a permanent resident for 6 years. We've owned property there since 1990. I love this valley. I understand the concerns. We have the same concerns in Pine Valley. This project could be much bigger. We could have gone into a resort situation and tried to force over 1,000 homes in there, and other developers probably would do that. But we are committed. Personally, I'm committed, and so is my team. But we're committed to work in any way we can with any agency to do the best thing. We have, when we talk about XL and DCL lanes, we agreed to do that. That wasn't forced upon us. We met with UDOT, a traffic study. Mr. Rhodes looked right at me and said, look, this isn't mandatory. It's up to you. We agreed to do it. We ordered one the next day, and we're going to adhere to what those findings say. We'll do the same thing with the sewer and any other issues that come up with irrigation and water and drainage, and that's all to come. And there's going to be a lot of hurdles to go over, and we're committed to do it. And I'm really hoping that this will kind of set the standard of what future larger development should look like. We're going into a lot of extra money on gated and styling, and putting in a 10-acre lake is a huge expense, but we want to do that to make it a nice place that people can enjoy and that the residents and the county can be proud of this when it's done. And that's basically what I wanted to say. But the other thing I would ask is that we move forward with a vote on it. I would hope that for a vote of approval, but if possible, I don't see any reason that we should table it. And if there is a reason to table this for the development agreement, I would ask that we can move forward on the motions with a condition that it's subject to the final development agreement. But I do think we're at the point of a final development agreement. Is there any questions while I'm up that you'd like to ask?
I brought up the water stuff. That was my main issue, is what you're going to do with the effluent.
Yeah.
How you're going to treat it.
Yeah, and we'll continue to work with DEQ. And like I say, we're looking at multiple different treatment plants, and we'll see who's the best and what everybody's most comfortable with, and that's what we'll do. It's not necessarily, hey, this guy's the cheapest, let's do it. If it's not the best, then we're not going to do it.
So do you have enough water rights to be able to And what year are your water rights?
Okay, right now we have 97 acre feet of water rights that we own. They're pre-1935. Upon approval of our motions, we have a seller that's holding the water rights for us, and they're 1917 water rights, and they were referred to us by the Water Reclamation District, the seller. So it's kind of tied in. We have an agreement between all three of us.
And that must be another 100 or so because
200 more.
200 more. So you'll have 300 total.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because I read in Paul Monroe's document that you had a total of 200 right now.
So 97 now.
We have 97 now.
200 that
we
are
have 200
Have an
reserved
option
to
on
purchase.
200 more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those were 1917.
That's what I've been told on the new ones, yes. They're all pre-1935, I know that.
Okay.
Good. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. I appreciate your
Appreciate
time.
Any other discussion or questions from the commission before we?
I've got some.
Yeah,
I mean,
you go
ahead.
first.
You want to?
You
Or
go
do
first, and
okay.
then I'll go.
All right. Okay. So I've got a few comments. I don't want to belabor this, but I think it's important. I don't want the public to think we don't study these and don't think about them, because we do. We internalize them. We've read all the emails. I've studied all the documents. I did call on Saturday. I called Paul Monroe, our Central Iron County Water Conservancy District General Manager, and I apologize for not being to the Planning Commission. I try to go to as many as I can, but I was out of town that evening or that day and couldn't make it. But I wanted to talk about the water situation a little bit. I read through a document he sent me, and I talked to him at length on Saturday. But one thing that the documents that I've studied says that there's some language in there that says you'll build a water tank when required to. But according to Paul Monroe, he said they won't allow one single connection until the water tank is completed. Is that what you're understanding? Okay. The well in these valleys, the closer you get to the mountains, you have higher TDS levels. And that's what happened with the Check-Shawnee Cliffs well. It was very high TDS, which ruined water heaters. It was a mess for them. And so I was on that board for about 8 years, and the Water District Board, and they actually drilled a new well right there by I-15. I'm sure many of you have seen that well that they drilled right there, and the water's a lot better. In last year, I think they pumped basically about 60% capacity. They said in the report it said they pumped 1,428 of 8,760, or 60 out of 365 days. So, according to Paul, there's plenty of capacity in that well, and of course the cost to run the pipe to bore under I-15 and to run the pipe to their subdivision, to their tank they have to build, is on them, is my understanding. I read in there that it was 200 acre feet of water, so 300's much better. And with the 200 acre feet, that was enough for 200 homes. But a lot of times with that, on our board, we came up with some policies where if the development focused on more xeriscape and water-wise landscapes, that we would require less acre feet per home. And so Paul mentioned that if you did that, you would have, with the 200 acre feet, you'd have up to 400 connections. That was my understanding of that. I just want to state that for the record. And then also the Check-Shawnee development was built in 1993, 70 lots, and it's taken 30 years to build 57 homes on those 30. So I think a lot of people think that if we approve this, there's going to be 500 homes next week there. It's not going to happen that way, right? So it took 30 years to build 57 homes on 70 lots on Check-Shawnee. Now, granted, the climate's a little different now than it was over the last 30 years, but that's something I think we need to talk or consider. The Water District obviously will not let them, even if they are restricted, it sounds like they have a lot of water, but even if they don't have enough, the Conservancy District will not let them continue to develop phases of that subdivision until they have the water. And you've mentioned pre-1935 water, and that's what's required with the Conservancy District to do that. I wanted to talk a little bit about property rights. I grew up in Moab. My folks moved there in 1957. They bought a lot of land in Moab. before I was born in '62. I'm grateful for private property rights because over the years, when I was 10 years old, my dad was paralyzed with encephalitis, and he was a he was an engineer and an excavator. And if it wasn't for the land that he purchased in 1957 through high school, I leveled lots with a D7 Cat, and we sold them, and that's how we supported our family. And I'm grateful that we were able to do that with the property we owned, to develop that and sell that property. And so I'm very conscious and very passionate about private property rights. If someone wants to develop their land and they abide by the ordinances and regulations that the county has in place, I think they have a right to do that. And I don't know that it's our right or anybody else's to tell them they can't. I know that we still own, our family owns about 90 acres on the northeast bench of Moab, some beautiful, pristine land, and I know it's going to be a battle for us to ever develop that if we want to. But we've paid taxes on that land for 67 years, and I'm not sure who's going to come and reimburse that money if they don't let us develop that. So I'm pretty passionate about that. The issue of crime's been brought up. You've got I-15 right there within a mile of this development with thousands of cars every day driving up. I've heard this argument over the years many, many times. I still remember when I was on the city council and the interstate drive was proposed to go through to build the Courtyard Marriott, those restaurants that are there now and that development. And Mayor Wilson is smiling. We went through hell for a year on that. People were saying we're going to drive in and they're going to come down to the neighborhood and wreak havoc and crime. It just hasn't happened. People drive into the motel, they use the room, they drive out, and so there's a lot of fear that's brought up about these things, and that's just unfounded. I think the septic density. Reed brought up the fact that if you had 10-acre lots in there and you had all these wells punched in the aquifer and all these different septic tanks, that could have a lot of negative effect on your groundwater just with the septics they wanted to put in to develop that. I think this development is actually a very wise thing where they're going to take care of their sewage with their own plant. I read the letter from the school district. They said the buses, they're adequate. They said they could accommodate, and I trust them with what they've said. The sewage will be regulated by the state. I thought it was interesting as I've listened to some of the minutes and some of the conversations. Is there's been a lot of talk about, well, in that valley there's only 5, 10, and bigger acreage lots that's developed. But if you look, I looked on the map over the weekend and I counted 75 1-acre lots on the south side of the road that was developed. And I'm sure the people, the older residents of New Harmony, they probably weren't happy when that was put in. But that was the right of those people that owned that land to develop those 75, approximately 1-acre lots at the time. I did read in the documents where it kept referring to Iron County Fire Department. We don't have a fire department. I don't know if that was referring to Ryan Riddle. They talked about
Wildland.
Cedar City.
It's wildland.
Is it just? But yeah, I guess that's what it meant. But obviously, there was an agreement with Cedar City Fire Department to provide fire service, interlocal agreement for that. And so I don't know if they're referring to Ryan Riddle as regarding that. We don't have a fire department in Iron County. And then I saw the agreement with the Central Iron County Water Conservancy District and then our sheriff with his letter. And then my understanding, and I don't know if Rich is going to address this at all, but with the traffic, I know that he did a study. Some claim it wasn't adequate, but I don't know if we want to cover that at all, or it's. I think this development, is about 1 mile from the freeway, and so if you do a de-acceleration and acceleration lanes, it seems like that would greatly enhance the traffic. And it according to what I heard about Rich's presentation in the Planning Commission, that it still doesn't even come close to maximizing the use of that road. So those are some of my comments.
Okay.
Commissioner Wood.
As far as the developer, you are brave. I just want to say this village that you're proposing is very costly. I know you know that, but I can't imagine you putting in something like this if it was you didn't plan to do it well, that you thought it would work. I mean, that's my thought, is that you know, you have done your due diligence trying to go through the process to do what you need to do. If this ever goes, that would be great, but I mean, I have my doubts just because it's so costly, and you're quite a ways away from the big cities to where people have to go shop and all of that kind of thing. But in our country, we have private property rights, and if you want to do that with your land, that you should, you know, be able to. I had a few other thoughts. The gated that everybody was quite concerned about. You know, if you want your own little community with a wall around it, a lot of the subdivisions have, in fact, in Cedar City, all of them have a wall around it. I don't know that that's really would be a concern of mine. You know, it would be nice, you know, if you took your dog for a walk and it got away, that it couldn't just run out and get on the highway or that type of thing. I like the idea that it'll be a central sewer. We went through a year or so ago with the density study that they did for that valley, and it was concerning. I'll tell you right now, it was concerning. Reed he worked very hard on that, and we came up with the 10 acres. Well, there's a lot of homes in Washington County that are much smaller than that. There's quite a few right in New Harmony that are much smaller. I mean, I think you all probably ought to encourage Washington County to do a new study, because those nitrates in the water that we tested was fairly high. And so, you know, going forward, you know, that made us go to the bigger lots that way. But at least this way, we have a sewer treatment. And like we mentioned earlier, that those sewer treatment plants are being run all over the country, and several in Utah. And Reed has actually asked a lot of the communities to look into those, to put theirs, you know, like Paraguna, Newcastle, and that type of thing, to put those on, because they are a concern, you know, for our groundwater. One more thing that I would say is scenery is free. Nobody has the market on the scenery. And I love that valley, and I love to go down and see the Three Fingers and all of that. And I'm sure that's why the developer has wanted to develop that way. And, you know, a lot of people probably couldn't afford to do a 5 or 10 acre, especially in these new costs that the inflation has put forward to us. So it would be nice to, you know, for some people to enjoy that too. I don't think that they're going to be cheap lots by any means, because of the cost of all of the, you know, amenities that you have to put in. But anyway, that's all my.
It has nothing to do with approving this, but Washington County.
Diana, could you come up to the microphone, please? I know, but we can't hear you on the audio in the world. Yeah.
That's come up a couple times with Washington County, and when I met with some of them last week, they and actually the example they gave was nitrates in Enoch. They are starting. They're going to start in Pine Valley and make a circle and do it all over again.
They are going to do that. I don't know how long that's really great to hear. Yeah. Actually.
Well, and along that, Diane, is like in Enoch, they had a well out there that years ago. The nitrates got so high in that well they had to abandon it. And once those nitrates infiltrate that groundwater, it's never going to go away.
That was in Cottonwood, and we lived in Cottonwood when they abandoned it.
What's a real
it was in Spanish Trails, and I drank that water.
We did
that explains
too.
a lot.
It has nothing to do with this, but just so you know, they are. I don't know when
they're looking.
Or how long.
That's good. That's a good plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, what have you got?
I think it's been covered.
Okay.
I think you guys have covered it really well. As far let's go with item number. Let's go with
2.
Item number 2 first. Is there a motion for item number 2?
I'll make that motion to approve proposed general plan tier change, tier 4 to tier 3 for approximately 482.86 acres within the sections listed in the agenda. And as Commissioner Blake mentioned, this is located near 2900 East Highway 144, New Harmony, Utah. Applicant, New Harmony Ranch, LLC, Brad Esposito, sorry. And that's
Second.
my motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's go to item number 3, public hearing, discussion and possible approval of proposed zone change from agriculture 20A20 to specially planned area, spa area, approximately 482.86 acres within the legal description as provided, also near 2900 East Highway 144, New Harmony Valley.
So moved. You said the whole thing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go to agenda item number 4.
I'll move that we approve the proposed development agreement for the New Harmony Ranch Village ICCD and RA Resolution 2024-1, approving an amendment to the participation agreement for the Fremont. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not.
That was,
I'm sorry. I thought
on the other page.
I'm on the wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Page
My pages.
2.
I had my notes written on the back, and so planned master village community with open space recreation, a village center with single and multifamily residential, approximately 547 dwelling units within the sections listed in the agenda, and the address and the applicant the same. You didn't know you was going to do a solar system there too, did you?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's move to agenda item number 5. Reed, I assume you're back up.
Yeah, we have experts here today that can address the district better than I can, but this is a public hearing that was identified for the special service district for this project for the sewer and road transportation district to take care of and accommodate as required by the development agreement, and they have to create this new legal entity. And the resolution that you approved about a month ago identified today as the public hearing date. What that essentially does is starts the 60-day protest period for which anyone can protest. There is a stipulation on whose protest can actually go towards killing the project, and those are only properties that are within the district, proposed district. So the district boundary being proposed here is for the boundary of the project property. It doesn't include anybody else. And I know there were some concerns earlier on about both the Tier 3 and the district could be expanded and take in other properties, and so they were concerned about that. But that's not what's going on. And the Tier 3 is very specifically limited to just the 482 acres that was approved for, and this district is for the same property. And so the owners of the property now have proposed to create this district, and only owners within the property can go towards the 25% that it would take to kill the project if 25% protested. Others can protest and they can voice their concerns, and those concerns can all be heard as the district is being considered at the end of the 60-day protest period. It'll come back and the commission can consider any of those protests and why and the concerns for those and weigh those out and determine whether it's in the best interest to create the district or not. So it's not that they can't protest, it's just it takes 25% of the property owners within the district protesting to kill the project. But if they make anyone else protesting makes a legitimate argument or a valid concern that you're concerned about that, would say, well, it doesn't make sense to do that in this case, then you could vote not to approve the district. Also, the the other thing I wanted to say about the district is it's a requirement that in the development agreement that they have that in order to take care and own and operate the sewer system. As been mentioned by some of the public comments, it takes a qualified operator. It takes somebody who is in the business and can do the testing and the reporting and the maintaining of the equipment and everything else. The way that this district will be set up, and Devin is here, Devin Snow can answer some of those questions more specifically, but once the district is created after the protest period, it'll come back and then the commission can take action considering all comments and protests of whether to create the district. At such time, afterward, the commission will appoint the district member, the board members. So and because there's not only one property owner in the district currently, and there are not a multitude of property owners to select from, they can appoint anyone to serve on that board to help get the thing established and to get the things built and to make the improvements and start their operation systems and their O&M plans and everything like that. So the county commission can appoint those people to ensure that it gets off on the right foot, and you've got people with experience and background that can address those kind of concerns. So that's the process. This is simply a public hearing to establish the beginning of the protest period, to take comments on it, but it's not the last word.
Right. Do we want to have, you come up and talk to us before we open the public hearing. Is that? Yeah.
Sure, happy to do that.
Let's
Devin
do
Snow
that. Tell us your name and who you represent and all that stuff for the record.
Devin Snow on behalf of the developer. And I think it would be helpful for the commission and also for the public just to differentiate between the actions that you just took. So all of those had to do with the uses of land and are these appropriate. This hearing is only about how the sewer system and infrastructure is operated and maintained in the future. So to make sure that that infrastructure is taken care of and it's run well. So just to kind of a recap, you passed a resolution back in January proposing to create the district. That set a hearing. So that's where we are today. There's no action on the agenda for today. Final action on this item would take place at another date to actually create the district. The only purpose of the hearing today is just to hear from members of the public about the creation of the district. I think a couple points to bring out about this district is that it'll be a public entity, which means it'll have open meetings. If people are interested in how it's being operated, a budget will be approved and adopted by the district. So that's a benefit to the public. It doesn't affect non-residents. So the fees that residents within this development pay for sewer service will only be paid by residents within this development. So the county generally, or people living outside of the New Harmony Ranch development, will not be asked to pay for sewer in this development. It's completely self-funded. There was a suggestion earlier that maybe a public infrastructure district might be a more appropriate vehicle for this. And public infrastructure districts are specifically not authorized to do operation and maintenance. And so that's why the county went forward with a special service district. It's for that reason. A PID can operate and maintain. The idea here is to operate and maintain into the future. So any questions for me?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good clarification. All right, on agenda item number 5, we'll declare public hearing open.
Diana Stiller from New Harmony. Just two quick things. One is actually a question, because in all of this, I thought I'd heard that perhaps the Special Services District, there's an S in there because it can include more than one thing, was going to include the roads, the maintenance and snow plows and stuff like that. I don't know what the deal is for that, so that's a question. And I may have heard that wrong, but that concern. And the other one is to repeat what the letter that Mr. Whitaker read. I've read through those documents many times, several times, and she talked with the state association, I forget what it was, about special services districts. And while it can be done on completely vacant land where there's no one there except the property owner who obviously wants to do it to protest it, when you read through the document, it talks all about the people who are there and who need these services. It's like when Tier 3 was created and went in Summit and Newcastle, it made sense for those areas. So those are our general questions. We understand the process. What was just explained, we're familiar with that. We just wanted to point out, if you read it, it doesn't anywhere at all sound like it was intended to go on open land.
Hello, Jim Bernowski, registered voter, 84757. Want a clarification on the protest period. It is restricted to people who reside within that development, correct? I thought you said that it was just
Others can.
Others
That's
can,
it,
but
yeah.
those are not appropriate protests. The appropriate protests are by the property owners within
Well,
the
if
district.
25% of them, then they can kill the project, but you can protest, absolutely.
Correct, but again, my point being that there's zero population there. So the only ones that can protest would be the owners of the property themselves.
But others can.
Well,
You
that,
can.
that, that would
Yeah.
be an effective, active protest. It would be accepted by the commission
Yeah.
on its face value as part of that 25%. So essentially, no one can protest effectively against the formation of the district.
Yeah. But other can.
Just want to make sure that was clear.
Mhm.
Pat Wall, Checshani Cliffs, New Harmony. At the beginning of this, the first Planning Commission meeting, if I remember correctly, they said that there would be no outside builders allowed, that this entire project was up to the developer to build and develop everything. I would like to know from the developer what his timetable is to fully build out this project.
That's really outside the parameters of this public hearing. This public hearing is specifically to address the special service district. I mean, that's a question that you can pose to the developers, but that's way outside the parameters of this public hearing.
John Lee, Iron County. So the Special Services District, the wastewater treatment ponds that are evaporation ponds, if you look at the amount of water that's going to be discharged into them, is wholly inadequate. They're too small, and there's going to be issues with runoff downstream. So it should be looked at again.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, Chair will declare public hearing closed on agenda item number 5, and there is no action item attached to that agenda item. We're going to move on to agenda item number 6, public comments. 3 minutes in length per speaker for public comments. Please don't repeat any others' comments. This is only for items not on the agenda. Not items related to the Commission's role as an appeal board. Comments should be directed to the Commission with no attacks on other folks' character. Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7. Discussion and possible approval of a partial subdivision vacate and amend for lots 14, 15, 16 of the Winterwood subdivision Unit 1 to combine into a single lot renumbered 14A located in the legal description is provided in the agenda. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you. This is one of the few land use things that will come back to you anymore regarding plats because of the changes that have been made, but a vacate and amend is something the County Commission still makes a decision on. This property is located just south of Summit on the east or south side of I-15. Whether you believe I-15 runs north and south through Iron County or not, you know. Whether,
like it.
yeah, just looking in a little closer, you can see the land ownership pattern is all private around this area. This was an old subdivision. Winterwood was done many, many years ago, and those lots are a little bit small to be able to put septic and well and accommodate the setbacks. And so what they've done is they're proposing to amend this currently zoned R1/2 property in half-acre lots and combine 3 lots, as you can see here in the diagram, into a single lot. There is a home and a barn or a garage outbuilding on the property, and they have a layout and a well. Let me show up. I don't have that. Yeah, right here. Shows the wells up on the upper lot, the garage and the house, and then they've got a shop down on the bottom lot. And their interest is just vacating those 3 lots, amending it into a new lot 14A. And so that's what we typically do, is use the number of the lower lot and add an A to it, so they always know that that's an amended lot. They can refer back to the plat and make sure that it's good. So I'm not aware of any concerns. The authorization for the county commission is to just review and determine that it is in the best interest of the public to make that amendment. And there's no public hearing or anything required for this. This is just your review, and we go forward.
And a motion. And a motion, right?
Yep. So I'll call for motion.
Okay. I'll move for approval of a partial subdivision vacate and amend for lots 14, 15, and 16, Winterwood subdivision, Unit 1, to combine into a single lot renumbered 14A.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
No worries. No problem. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7 is approved. Move on
Commissioners?
to number 8, discussion possible approval of...
Can we get a signature on that? Is
Oh,
that
absolutely.
okay?
Yeah, do you want to...
I can take it in and have it recorded.
Yes, we can do that right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can take a minute to do that.
Yep, not a problem.
Sorry.
Hey. Oh, yeah. I can bust that out. It's freaky looking.
What's going on over there? Oh,
He's involved with
the other board.
the other board.
Reed, are you done with that display then?
Yeah.
Awesome. Are you around tomorrow or sometime this week? All right. I don't think we're ever going to be done here today, but I got a thing to talk to you about. I'll call you. All right. Agenda item number 8, discussion and possible approval of the potential sale of 2 properties owned by Iron County in the Cedar Highlands subdivision area. This is Rich.
We've discussed these properties before. They're the ones in Cedar Highland that were the court required that they be transferred to the county when Cedar City Highlands, the city, was disincorporated, unincorporated. And so after conversations for the last little while between staff, BLM, and the plans for the alternative routes, those two lots are not they're not part of the plan that BLM approved for rerouting that road. That doesn't say we're going to start the reroute project. I want to make that clear. That nowhere in this does this say that Iron County is thinking about taking over any roads or becoming a part of that. It's just that these lots are not necessary to be on the rolls of Iron County owned properties. So I'd like to get permission to start to put those out for sale. I also wanted to point out that there are some both Cedar Highlands and the Water Conservancy District have some claim for unpaid bills on those. Those will have to come and be paid by the buyer. We will make sure that it is part of the condition that any liens or other encumbrances on the property will be paid by the buyer.
And I believe those were purchased with corridor preservation funds, and so
yes, and so the funds will go back to the corridor preservation. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any questions?
No. All straightforward.
Ready for motion?
Yes, please.
I'll move to approve to approve the sale of two properties owned by Iron County in the Cedar Highlands subdivision, as discussed by our county engineer, Rich Wilson.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
As long as you're up there, we'll go to number 9. Discussion and possible approval to ratify an agreement between Iron County and Sunrock for the construction of the Iron County EWP project, Right Hand Canyon, and Red Creek.
Yes, so the EWP projects were approved, and we received go ahead to put those out to bid. They were put out to bid. Sunrock was the winning bidder, and we have need to ratify the contract between us and Sunrock. So that they can get started. We have a pre-build meeting scheduled for this week with Sunrock and with Bowen Collins, our consultant, and are making sure that we can get started as soon as possible on those two projects. You might remember, Commissioners, I also talked about at the a couple weeks ago, Ladybug Nursery was on there. Because we have a cost share requirement, after further consideration, I felt that we could do that in the county. We would do that on ourselves. It's a smaller project. It's about $20,000, and that will be a portion of our cost share will be to do that. Good. So we will do that. I'm very sensitive to what can we do ourselves and how to keep the county's budget. I'm sensitive to our budgets.
So
but I felt
Curtis
that
will be able to do.
Right, and if we need assistance, we'll get it from the road department for hauling and things like that. We think we can do that, and the nice thing about that is, so we went back to NRCS, and we just put that amount that Sunrock bid it for, and that's the amount we get written back to us, regardless of how we can save money. It will be the amount that is written off toward us. If we can do it for less, we get the benefit of that. So
Good.
Awesome.
So I'm just asking for approval for a contract we've already
just a ratification.
A ratification of the contract.
All right.
I would move for approval to ratify an agreement between Iron County and Sunrock for the construction of Iron County EUP project, Right Hand Canyon, and Red Creek.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, number 10, discussion and possible approval to ratify 2 BLM grants for FLPMA Title V that authorizes Iron County to improve, operate, maintain, and terminate water facility and flood control mitigations on BLM administered land and Title V right-of-way. UTU 82051, which amends Legacy UTU 85051 to add a flood control structure on public lands administered by the BLM.
So this, all that meant was BLM gave us permission to do the EWPs on the on their lands. Both Right Hand and Red Creek have BLM associated properties. One of the nice things about what Lenny did at BLM for us on the Right Hand Canyon, instead of making this specific, and on Red Creek, instead of making this specific to the project in hand of the EWP, we have rights to get in there and manage and maintain for the next 20 years.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Which is it took a little bit longer on their
Do they
side
make
of
us go
things.
through NEPA or anything, or it's a flood channel? Do they? Or do they
No, they did all that in house, and
So-
we're able, and that's why it took a little bit longer to get. We applied for this permission almost a year ago,
That's still pretty quick.
Yeah.
and they went
Yes,
ahead.
for the BLM.
And BLM years.
Oh man.
and so rather than being a single project, it is a 20-year grant to work in that area,
That'll be
which
really
is
good,
fantastic.
Richard.
It's great.
Thank you for doing that.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
I'll move to approve to ratify 2 BLM grants for the FLPMA Title V that authorizes Iron County to improve, operate, maintain, and terminate water facility and flood control mitigations on BLM administered land, and Title V right-of-way UTU-82051, which amends Legacy UTU-82051 to add a flood control structure on public lands administered by the BLM.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 11. Discussion and possible approval to ratify a professional service agreement between Iron County and GTC Consulting, Inc. This is for legislative contract.
Okay. We just need a motion.
We just need a motion.
I would move for approval to ratify a professional service agreement between Iron County and GTC Consulting Incorporated.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Sure, I think that's all. Yep. All right, we'll step out of our role at this point of the Iron County Commission and step in to our role as the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. Item number 12 is the ICC-DNRA Resolution 2024-1, approving an amendment to the participation agreement for the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area. Welcome.
I'll speak to this if you'll allow it. I'm Adam Long. I'm the attorney for the Iron County Community Development and Renewal Agency. The two things we have on the agenda here are essentially twins. We are dealing with the Fremont and Rush Lake solar projects. These projects have been around for a little while. We did the initial interlocal agreements in 2019. We amended those in 2020. And really what we're requesting here is an amendment to the commercial operations date, so the date that the developer would have to have these projects up and running, generating power and selling it to whoever the off-taker is. In the participation agreement, that is a requirement, prerequisite to get this project developed and running. The ask here is to change that, basically push that date out by 3 years to January 1st, 2028. Notably, we are not changing the interlocal agreements. So the way this is structured, when the participating tax entities signed on to this, so city, county, school district, and water district, the interlocal agreements say that they'll participate for a period of up to 15 years with a drop dead date of 2039. So that means the developer right now would have to start collecting, or the agency would have to start collecting tax increment in 2025 meaning the project have to be built by 2025. That is not currently in the cards. We do have a representative of the developer here to speak to the realities of developing these big solar projects with supply chain constraints and a number of other issues. But the question here is just an amendment to the participation agreement. So what would happen if they develop this project and have it operating January 1st, 2028, instead of getting the full 15 years of tax increment, effectively a tax rebate, it would end up being 12 years because this stops at the end of 2039 no matter what.
All right.
I'm happy to answer questions, or like I said, there's a representative from the developer here as well.
Same developer for both agenda items?
Correct.
12 and 13. So you're speaking kind of globally on both agenda items?
As I said, these are essentially twins, separate project areas and separate resolutions, but as far as the agreements go, they are twins.
And so they would basically get fewer years of increment.
Exactly.
But the original agreement would stay the same in the original terms.
Yeah, all we are doing is changing their commercial operations date because right now they will not meet it.
Great.
You almost had a solar project in New Harmony there for a minute. Sorry about that.
I heard that, and I quickly packed up my stuff and ran in here. So I was paying attention at least.
Let me read agenda item number 13 into the record. ICCD and RA Resolution 2024-2 approving an amendment to the participation agreement for the Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area. And I think we can
do those together.
Because they're resolutions, I would suggest you actually vote on them separately.
We will. We're just they're both. We'll do number 12 and then number 13. But
okay,
is that all for discussion as far as both? Okay, we'll do that. Call for a vote on 12.
Is it my turn?
I don't know.
Move to approve the ICCD and RNA Resolution 2024-1 approving an amendment to the participation agreement for the Fremont Solar Community Development Project area.
do we need to be moved out to 28?
I think it's all in there.
Or it's all in
Yeah, so
there?
this is a resolution approving a contract amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion on 13.
I'll move to approve the ICCCD and RA Resolution 2024-2 approving an amendment to the participation agreement for the Rush Lake Solar Community Development Project area.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? I can't talk.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, Adam. Step back into our role, reconvene as the Iron County Commission. Still got time.
I think we're done.
Do we need to make a motion to go into
do we have
litigation, or do we have any?
We are going to possibly get on a call this afternoon sometime. So how do we handle that? Do we need to leave this meeting open?
You probably should. Did you say you had to meet in Cedar?
We've got a
No, we got a phone
1:30.
call.
No.
Here?
Well, we got a 1:30 meeting, but then after that, with the email we got
We needed to talk, but he
Right.
wasn't
It's a call.
available till later, right?
No. He said
So-
he'd be available.
Get
When I answered his email, he said he'd be available later this afternoon.
So I would suggest a recess.
just recess.
And do we have any non-delegated? Do we have any county boards? Any
No.
issues?
I don't
And
know.
we did personnel,
We did
so
personnel.
we're done with it. Yeah.
Okay, so we will recess. Agenda item number 14 is discussion regarding ongoing litigation, which may be a closed meeting, but we'll come back and address that later this afternoon when our closed meeting people are available on the phone.
Okay.